Good evening. My name is Paul Woodburn. I live at 66 North Irving Street, Ridgewood, New Jersey. I've come in front of you guys a couple times to complain, yelling, just like I did to everybody on the wall over there before you, town councils before you. I just got informed this afternoon that you are planning on putting up permanent lights on Vets Field, which I am totally opposed to. Before you, what we have right now on Vets Field is you have generator lights, and the only times you really need them out there is for when these Pee-wee teams play soccer or their little league, little things. They don't use them in the summer for baseball. They do not use them in the summer for their camp or anything like that. You are trying to put up, you're spending over $700,000 to put up permanent lights on Vets Field, which is still, by the way, hasn't been fixed. Vets Field, if anybody looks out this window tomorrow, they can see that it is still completely covered with mud. As of where I live on North Irving Street, they just started cleaning up Stevens Field. And this is the other thing I want to say. My wife Dorothy, my lovely, beautiful wife Dot, she says, why don't you spend that money, $700, $800 for lights, put them over on Benjamin Franklin Field, where it's dry. Why do you want to put lights on a field that is flooding the last time I was here, and I talked to you, Paul, I said, look, since I talked to you in October, these fields have flooded twice. Stevens Field's flooded three times. Stevens Field flooded 3 times. Yesterday, you know what they did to fix that bridge problem I was telling you about, that little footbridge by the high school? You know what they did? They took a couple of cans of white paint and put white paint on the bridge. That's how they're solving this problem. This is a major problem where that bridge is so low that every time the debris comes down, it clogs that bridge. It all backs up here. Everything goes underwater. I've been telling you guys that for 20 years now. No one listens to me. But you know what they did yesterday? Somebody was out there with a can of paint, painting over that little bridge, making it look great. And they had a guy scooping all the dirt into the river yesterday, the day before, scooping with a backhoe, pushing the dirt off of that AstroTurf field that these kids are going to play on like 2 weeks from now. That doesn't solve the problem, and all they're doing is they're pushing all that dirt into the river. Go look at it yourselves, guys. I mean, come on. This has been going on for years, and I've been trying to ask you guys to solve the problem. So before you spend $700,000 for big permanent lights that everybody in this village has to pay to keep them going all night long, I mean, until 9 o'clock at night when you have to turn them off, which is only a couple hours, but still, taxpayers have to pay for the electricity.
If you could finish your thought, Paul.
Okay, so this is all I'm trying to say. Please, I am opposed to you guys putting the lights here. Put them up on Benjamin Franklin High School, up by Valley Hospital, because it's dry up there. You're not going to have a problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And I hope I don't have to come here again. You know? All right.
Hi there, Clay Fisher, 5 Maynard Court in Ridgewood here. I'm the president of the Maroon Soccer Club, and I wanted to come here on behalf of the club to express our excitement for the Shedler project and reiterate the vital importance of accelerating the Shedler turf field plans. The recent flooding of Maple, Stevens, and RHS turf field has once again illustrated the need for a durable, sustainable field that our community can count on. This limited field space that we have, the situation we have in the spring, will cost our nonprofit with over 600 players in the club and really our only limitation right now in terms of growth and serving the needs of this community has actually been field space and lack thereof. But the current challenges will cost us tens of thousands of dollars as we have to rent fields outside of town. It'll also force us to play the majority of our games. Our kids have to travel, the families have to travel out of town for most of their games this spring as well. So I do want to thank the mayor and village council here for their continued support for this project and their willingness to develop a solution for all parties. I've been really impressed with how this process has been handled in transparency and openness to hearing everyone's opinion. So I want to thank you for your continued support and addressing this long-standing issue that has limited our community and our club for a long time now. So thank you.
Thank you, Clay.
Good evening, Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. So I listened to the budget meeting on Monday night, and I couldn't believe something that I heard, so we had to go back and replay it a couple of times. Regarding the lights that you're proposing to put out here on Vets Field, I'm not offering an opinion on the lights, although I certainly have one, but I was shocked when Councilwoman Reynolds said, and I paraphrase, shouldn't we send letters to the neighbors in advance of this, expenditure? And first of all, speaking of civility, Councilwoman Winograd literally jumped on Ms. Reynolds and interrupted her, saying, this is a good project that has to go through. Anyway, the mayor then said, and this is what I had to re-listen to, he said, we don't want to send out the letters in advance, and I'm paraphrasing, but I did listen to it 2 or 3 times. We don't want to send out the letters in advance because people get all antsy when they hear lights. What we'll do instead is we'll send out letters and invite everybody to come hear a presentation after we have the contractor in place, and apparently you already have the name of the contractor that you're going to use for this. That is the dead opposite of transparency, that you're going to inform the neighbors afterwards instead of beforehand. That's not happening on Clinton. On Clinton, everybody's there, you're having meetings, people are getting to talk, it's very collegial. Why in the world would you not tell the neighbors in advance that you want to spend almost $750,000 to put up lights, which, as Mr. Woodburn said, will affect their quality of life because he's an immediate neighbor? Why in the world would you not want to do that? I was shocked, and I sure don't want to hear the word transparency again, because that is really, really doing something under the table. Sorry to say it.
Thank you, Ann.
Good evening, Boyd A. Loving, 342 South Irving Street. The budget hearing on the 21st contained a presentation by Ridgewood Water concerning what their plans are for the upcoming year. One of the slides shown during that presentation was a comparison of water rates in the state of New Jersey and how Ridgewood Water compares to other water utilities. Quite frankly, after I took a closer look at the slide, when I downloaded it, I see that we are comparing apples to oranges. There were only 2 other Bergen County communities listed on that slide that contained about 15 bars in the bar graph. One community was Fairlawn, and the other community was Lyndhurst. I would be interested to know, to compare apples to apples, what our current rate and what our proposed water rate is in comparison to other towns within the Northwest Bergen area who also operate municipal water facilities. Ho-Ho-Kus has such a facility, Waldwick has such an operation, Ramsey has such an operation, and Mahwah has such an operation. If the water department could please provide to you, and you could provide to us, what our water rate is in comparison to communities that immediately surround us, it would be better than knowing what the water rate is like in Newark. I don't think anybody here, no offense to Newark, has any interest in knowing what people in Newark pay for water, but we would have an interest in knowing what people in the communities immediately surrounding us pay for water. Additionally, I believe we purchase water from the borough of Hawthorne. It would be interesting to know what the people in Hawthorne are paying on an average yearly basis for their water bill. So again, if the water department could kindly provide that information to you, and you could let us know when it comes time to disseminate that information, that would be great. Also, on another subject of the water department, I spoke to Mr. Calby this morning, and I was quite quite surprised to learn that there is a project scheduled for a water main to go right down the middle of South Irving Street, which I'm a resident of. I never heard that discussed before this council. Apparently, it's going to be quite an extensive bit of construction. Residents will not have access to their homes at certain times of the day while this is going on. And quite frankly, I'm wondering why a new water main is coming down the middle of South Irving Street when the public service right-of-way is less than 200 feet away from where we live. And I'm wondering, why isn't that right-of-way being used? This is apparently a water main that is interconnecting facilities in Ridgewood to a new station in Glen Rock. Why are the residents of South Irving Street going to be totally disrupted, and why hasn't the council been informed of that when this construction is scheduled to start in May, and why haven't the residents been notified of it? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyd.
Cynthia O'Keefe, 542 West Saddle River Road. I have a couple of comments and then a few questions. I wanted to first thank Marcia Stoltz for her article in the NewJersey.com Bergen Record. She did talk about the application, and what she said was that opposition to the village's proposed multi-purpose sports field on the historic Zabriskie-Shedler property accounts for half of the village's 1,200-page application to the State Historic Preservation Office. The full application was submitted earlier this month, and she said the biggest surprise is that all of the appendix, Part 3, 310 pages, the first 118 pages of Appendix Part 4 are petitions, followed by 167 pages of letters in opposition to the project. It's a total of 595 pages, so that's half of the 1,200 pages. You know, that's pretty interesting. As you know, and I listened to this gentleman say, you know, you were all open and listening and compromising. Again, the Shedler neighborhood doesn't feel like there were any compromises made. You marched in and told us there was going to be a big field, and that's it. There was no discussion. There was no reverting back to a earlier agreed upon plan. And you know, we took our time, we spoke to you, we told you, you know, how we felt, and it fell on deaf ears. So it's unfortunate, and you know, all of you, except for Lorraine, who voted no on the large field to cut down almost 300 trees on the property, if the plan goes through and it's approved by SHPO, you know, you're going to ruin that property. You're going to compromise the integrity of the air quality. We are already dealing with safety issues. We've told you 2 children have been hit by cars. I'm sure that sports people who are bringing their families or coming to the park they should be concerned with safety. West Saddle River is going to be very dangerous, whether you have parking, bump outs. These are all cul-de-sacs that lead onto West Saddle River. I would hate to tell you, I told you so, but I do think no traffic studies were done since 2015. So if we care about safety and we care about our residents, that should be paramount. I guess, you know, the questions that I have would be probably for Keith. If you could give us an update on the potential soil contamination with the NJDEP and the status and whether it's going to start or it's going to end and where it stands, I'd appreciate that. Also, quickly add that I know there's been an ongoing discussion on social media about the numbers of children playing sports, and I would like some answers. We'd like to review that spreadsheet that you were putting together, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Hi, guys. I'm Karen Shaner. I live at 251 Lot Road. I'm here not only to represent a lot of the children that play sports in this town, but also the adult athletes. We're always, especially the soccer players, we're always trying to find a dry field. So I just want to say great job and thank you to the council and everyone for pushing the beautiful plans through. And I also want to say thank you for the transparency on this. The timeline that you guys published and all the other communications have been really helpful when explaining it to other people as well. So as Clay said, our town obviously really needs another large-sided field. The state of the high school stadium field, Maple and Stevens, is really, it's horrible that we're going into lacrosse season, another soccer season, and other sports, and we can't even get on a field right now or know the status of it. But I'm really hoping that when this all goes through, we can make Shedler a turf field and also one day install permanent lights so we can use it past 4 o'clock in the winter. And I really look forward to playing on it when it's done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Karen.
Hi, I'm Christine Corbett. I'm at 405 Heights Road. I just wanted to talk about the lights for a minute. I'm not a fan of spending $700,000 on lights for vets. I feel like there's a lot of outstanding risk to the village right now about the field flooding and how that's going to be resolved and how much that's going to cost. So why put more lights on a field that floods? It doesn't make any sense to me. And also, I just feel that there's not enough fiscal responsibility in the council. There's a lot of huge expenditures that I think are nice to have, but sometimes it would be nice if we didn't have to have maximum tax increases every year. My daughter's graduating high school. I don't plan to be one of the people that leaves because taxes are too high, but who knows? Because I really feel like every year the tax increase is, maxed out. It would be nice to see not spending money. And I don't know, the Habernickel barn came down, and there's some, I don't know what's funded, what's not, but there's a pavilion picture I see. I mean, there's many nice things in the future we could do. I just don't think we need to do them all at once, and I don't think we need to put money in a field where we don't even know the resolution of the flooding issues right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And forgive me, we only allow 10 people, to speak at the mic. We have another 7 people coming up on our hybrid access. So we already extend our public comment period from 40 to 50 something minutes. So that's why we have to limit it. Forgive me. And now we'll go to our hybrid access. Dan, you're up.
Thank you. Dan Joya, 447 Fairway Road in Ridgewood. I'd like to speak on the Shedler concept, the Shedler Field project. Wanted to thank you at the council for continuing to do the yeoman's work that I think 15 years ago when I was coaching baseball, and if anybody you know who I am, I have boys who play lacrosse and football. It's been that long that we were approached about purchasing the Shedler Field to put up some additional fields. Fairway Road, as you know, is kind of right in the middle of all of the other fields that are going on down near Betts and the high school and Maple. And I will tell you, we are in sore need of additional field space. So I applaud you for pushing through a full-sided field. The town dearly needs that. As it relates to transparency, I think you guys did an excellent job putting that application together. It thoroughly goes through everything, including David Fund's comments to the people saying if town is going to pay money for this, which we borrowed every cent for, I don't want to hear you coming back, because quite frankly, all you people who live over there, that place it's going to sink. What's going to cost us? About $6-7 million in total, right? We would have been making money, revenue off that if it turned into a gas station, which it probably should have, if not for a few strategic conversations 15 years ago. So we made the decision as a town to buy it. We've invested way more money than we expected. So now let's get it done the way it was originally anticipated to be. And thank you very much for hearing me and for your efforts on this project.
Thank you, Dan. Next up, Robert. You're on mute, Robert. Oh, there you go.
So Robert Lynch, 40 Sherwood Road in Ridgewood. I'm calling in primarily on behalf of the Ridgewood Lacrosse Association and our over 700 players and families. Each and every year, first I just want to say thank you to the council for their diligence and attention to this matter. Each and every year, Ridgewood has more and more and more programs to get people outdoors and be active. And I think I haven't heard anybody in the community do anything but applaud that. Last couple of years, the high school added a girls flag football program. This spring, the youth football program is adding a youth girls flag football league. That's great. But if you've been at any of the village council, the field committee meetings or paying attention to youth sports over the past decade, there isn't a whole lot of excess capacity on the field side for people to play in particular, excess capacity that is outside of the floodplain that regularly gets damaged. So I think it's great that we have more programs. I think the village needs to just recognize as a whole that if we're going to have more programs, we need more places for these people to go. And I also want to speak to the quality of stuff. Like, I don't necessarily just think that we need more fields. I think we need better fields, and we should be looking at identifying other things and other options that are outside the floodplain. We need obviously a comprehensive plan to deal with the fields we have that are in the floodplain, but it's important for the vibrancy and the extracurriculars of the community that we have reliable places for people to do these things if we think they're valuable to the community, which I, for one, do. So I just wanted to call in and say thank you for your hard work. I know it hasn't been an easy road. I know it hasn't been without its obstacles and its ups and downs, but I just wanted to call in and say thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Ellie, you're up next.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to call in from far away. Yes, I do applaud you on your posting the entire application on your website. It makes it much, much easier for us to read it. So I do thank you for that. I'm going to differentiate from some of the comments, of course. I just want to say, and I sent you a letter, and I don't think everyone knew what was in the letter, that it was quoted last meeting that the change from the ad hoc report was just a very small change. It was stated that it went from 50 to 75 yards, which is large, and now it's only 60 by 110, as if it were a small difference. Well, looking at the numbers, it's not a small difference. It's 76% larger, closer to the house, more trees done, less open space, less percolation. You know the field is much, much larger. But to say that it's only a small difference, that everything else that the committee wanted is not true. For example, 2 pages of the ad hoc report are glossed over, pages 18 and 20. Page 18 specifically calls for applicable studies conducted by independent experts, traffic, safety, noise, and environmental studies that should be performed by professionals contracted by the Village of Ridgewood. To date, the only traffic study I know of was formed by a Ridgewood policeman a while ago. I'm not sure about the noise study, but I don't think any environmental studies have been performed, and of course I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. On page 20, a very, very important measurement has not been publicized enough. When I saw the stakes out for the accepted size field over a year and a half ago, the field looked very large. And in fact, I see the report says clearly, there is a 5-yard boundary and fence around the field. So it's not just 50 by 75, it's a lot more. And to insist an enormous field will impact the house, the road, that it will not, makes no sense. That report that we did was a real compromise. All the people calling for more space for their children to play, there was going to be a lot of space for the children to play. On this committee, just keep in mind, different than what your council has done. We had sports enthusiasts. We had people like the people speaking tonight. We had the Parks Department. We had the mayor. We had a council member. We had neighbors. We had representatives of the House. We all got together to do what should be the way things are done. Everyone gave something up. The neighbors knew their responsibilities as they lived next to an almost empty, tree-lined, 7-acre area, which had to be used for the benefit of the town. They knew this. They gave up a lot. Everyone gave up a lot. The sports enthusiasts gave up a lot. They wanted originally a 90-foot baseball diamond with a large, large outfield. They gave up a lot. We all
Ellie?
gave up.
Ellie, if you could finish up?
I will. I
Thank you.
just want to say, the mystery is why this council is spending so much money, so much divisiveness for what? The kids could already be playing on a field. And I thank you very much for your time. I really mean it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Rurik, you're up.
Excuse me. Rurik Halaby, 1 Franklin Avenue. A couple of short comments on Shedler. I want to commend the village council and the village manager for your work on Shedler. For years, this potentially wonderful piece of property languished as a dump that did no one any good. It was of no use to anyone, excepting perhaps the bondholders who enjoyed clipping the coupons. After more than a decade, we are finally beginning to see progress. Yes, a park that will serve the needs of all of Ridgewood's stakeholders, young and old. And I mean a park that serves the needs of all of Ridgewood and not just one neighborhood. There are many things that I admire about you, including the way you gracefully stood up to the sound and fury signifying nothing. Also, to the way you're able to bear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools. The old Greeks had an expression that beauty is grace under pressure. And I can tell you that you are beautiful people. Lastly, I want to commend Siobhan Winograd for being the only person in Ridgewood to come up with any ideas for a use for the Shedler House. Where are all the historians who have been clamoring for the restoration of the house? Why couldn't they come up with one idea for the use of the house? Thank you, Siobhan. Anyway, thank you very much. And by the way, thank you for introducing the hybrid meeting. I'm away from Ridgewood, and I can still make my opinion heard. And this is thanks to the 4 of you who work so hard to restore the hybrid meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Rurik. And I just want to say, we only have time for 3 more callers. So we take 10 people in person and 7 people online. We've heard from 4, so we're going to hear from 3 more. Kevin, you're up next.
Hi, Kevin Wen, 147 West Glen Avenue. I want to first thank the council for putting the West Glen sidewalk on the agenda again. I urge the council to approve the funding so it gives the residents a peace of mind. Recently, I've noticed a few kids walk that stretch of West Glen like every day after school dismissal. Maybe they're new to the neighborhood, as I don't recall seeing them walk there before. They seem to come from the bus stop at the intersection of West Glen and Monroe, I believe. So they must walk the entire stretch, from Monroe to Heights, I believe. And it really makes me nervous when I see, some of them balancing themselves basically on the curb, and as they try to avoid incoming traffic. And what's worse, I've seen a kid or maybe different kids on their phone while walking that dangerous stretch, which is pretty terrifying if you're a parent. Look, it just takes a few seconds from a careless kid, careless driver to make a tragedy, right? So a sidewalk, can significantly reduce that risk. So I would urge the council to, please make the sidewalk on West Glen a reality, and don't make the tragedy a reality. If don't put up those dreadful lights on Vets Field. I'm also against the artificial turf fields at the Shedler property. I urge the council to take the money and put it into the sidewalk project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Susan, you're up. You're on mute, Susan.
Hi, can you hear me?
All good.
All right, thank you. I'm just saying, Susan Ruan, 705 Kingsbridge Lane. I have a few topics.
Susan,
One, I
if
wanna
you could
thank-
speak a little more directly into your phone.
All right, can you hear me better
So much
now?
better. So much better. Thank you.
All right, yeah. I want to begin by thanking the council for putting the footbridge on the budget. I saw that, thank you, as well as West Glen sidewalks. I just want to confirm that you received my email and understood that the flooding, that the footbridge does not cause flooding for anyone at the on the proper along the river. I know I sent videos as well as pictures. The next topic is the expenditures. I just want to make sure, because there seems to be a lot of expenditures on the agenda, such as lights at Vets, the pavilion at Huppernickel, that the footbridge and West Glen will be actually the priority things that get done, because we've been waiting for so long to do that. And it is a safety issue versus just a convenience issue, such as lights at Vets and the pavilion. These are safety issues, and kids have actually gotten hurt. The next is the billboard. I want to confirm that the people voting on the billboard are the people that have heard the arguments for a while, because yesterday there were a lot of new faces at the zoning board, and I, was a little bit dumbfounded on who's voting and who's not. And then lastly is Shedler. I want to bring up that the New Jersey Department of Environment has concerns about contamination at Shedler soil, and that it wasn't really advisable to turf. Does the town wish to follow the guidance that was laid out? Also, I know I spoke to residents along the Hohokus Brook, and they believe that the turf field at the high school has caused flooding for them. So we're next to Saddle River, and I don't want what happened at Shedler to increase runoff water down to Saddle River and cause our homes to flood even more now. Which is, again, that's why I've been asking for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to look at the possibility of flooding to increase the occurrence of it. And lastly, thank you for publishing or posting the application online for Shedler, but the timeline was incorrect with, because it excluded the ad hoc committee's plans for Shedler, which should have been also listed in there because it was a compromise. And lastly, it was very concerning just to hear that lights are being added to Vets, and then someone from the sports community trying to say that she wants lights at Shedler, which is something that this village council has said repeatedly that they weren't going to do. But is that something that we now
Susan,
have to
if
be
you could finish
looking
your
forward
final
to?
thought, please.
That was it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this will be our last speaker for public comment at the beginning of the meeting. Anyone who would like to stick around, there will be a public comment portion at the end of the meeting. Alex, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the time. I just wanted to call to express my gratitude towards the mayor, the council, and Siobhan in particular for championing the Shedler effort. For the last several years, it feels we've had the proverbial 100-year storm hit Ridgewood 3 or 4 times. Our field situation is a challenging one. We're both poorly maintained and poorly situated. I feel for the thousands of children that have had their games and activities canceled each year due to unusable fields. I feel for the many high school sports that have had their seasons canceled, shortened, or moved away to other towns just to be played. I've seen the scramble this spring to find fields for our teams. We are better than this. This is a step forward towards creating a solution that we can be proud of and that serves our community. This is not an issue that is plaguing our neighboring towns. It's time to come together and create viable solutions. For far too long, we've done nothing. This pertains to both long-term and short-term options. Inaction is an active choice, and we've paid for it. The benefits of Shedler, I hope, will be orders of magnitudes greater than the cost. I just want to thank everyone for their time and commitment to pushing this project forward. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Can you just give us your name and address for the record?
Alex Finston, 150 Brookside Avenue, Ridgewood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Aileen. And with that, I'm going to close public comment, and we will go to our village manager's report. Oh, wait, does anyone have any responses? Anything they'd like to say?
I do. I want to say a couple things because the public is here and this is an opportunity. So this is a workshop. This is videotaped. We have public meetings where we vote, and those are videotaped. At the beginning of the year, we have budget sessions where we talk about strategic long-term planning and staffing. We discuss our operating budget, which is how we run the business of government, and then we discuss our capital. And several times tonight, that was referenced. Capital discussions are strategic. You know, what are we doing? Are we improving a park? And the lighting outside on Vets was referenced. One, all of those meetings and all of the discussions referenced, they're completely transparent. They're on video. So all the conversations that we're having, we're well aware the public is watching. But with respect to Vets, right now that's an idea. And for us to take everything on the capital budget and involve the public at that point would be like trying to do your annual plan with everyone involved. So I want to just clear that up. What will happen is if a project survives the budget and moves forward as capital, it then moves into its next life step would be in a work session where it would be discussed. That's typically the point where neighbors are sent letters. Because sidewalks and safety have been such a big issue, and because I do believe Lorraine and I are very civil to each other and get along and have a good time, we had several last-minute items come into Capitol, and we didn't send letters for all of them at that point either, and we're discussing, are they going to move forward in our capital plan? And if they do, the time where we would contact neighbors and do all that is when they move to a workshop, so we could discuss them. That's number one. Number two, with respect to Shedler, Shedler's fully funded. One of the most interesting things here, being new to the council, in addition to what we've done with Shedler, it's fully funded. There were plans in place. There was allocations from prior year. You'll notice this year there's no capital discussion of adding money to Shedler because we have a fully funded plan that has just not been executed. And then there was one more thing. Oh, I think he left. But while we are the village, we couldn't take lights and shift them to BF because while most people don't understand this, there's two owners of fields in town. We own Village Fields and the Board of Ed owns that. So it's not, sometimes when we go through these options to the general field user, it seems like take it from here and put it there. But some of the concerns referenced tonight are related to Board of Ed fields and we have no authority to go over that. So I just wanted to make sure that the budget meetings are recorded. There's no way we couldn't be transparent on it because we're on TV. And two, I think when you're having a strategic plan, it's the wrong time to do the granular work that you see done in a work session. So I just wanted to explain that because it was important. And that's it. Keith, did you have anything you wanted to say?
I do.
I really, shocking.
Shocking, huh?
And Keith, I actually wanted to ask you, we set up a night where everyone can come and see an illustration of how the lights will work at Maple.
I'm going to talk about it.
I know you are. I know you are. And we want everybody to come. And Keith's going to talk about it. I think it's this Monday?
Well, that's for the council, but there's going to be a subsequent session.
Right. So, yeah, there's been nothing approved, nothing done yet. So, once we go further into this, we want everyone to get involved and give us their opinions so that they can see what's going on. We believe that these lights, if ultimately approved, will create a better quality of life for the neighbors because the technology behind lighting has improved so dramatically. There's something that I've come to learn called spillage. And spillage in older lights means that when it's focused here, the light spills everywhere. With newer lighting, when it's focused here, it stays here. So we believe ultimately that when everyone sees what is being planned there, that it's not only going to be better for the neighbors, it's going to be cleaner because we won't have the portable lights that run on gasoline-powered engines that are noisy and smelly. So we think that's going to be a better thing. Secondly, I just wanted to point out, I know several people spoke about the sidewalks on West Glen and the bridge at Kingsbridge Lane. In just a few minutes, we will be suspending our work session to go into a public meeting so we can begin the process of bonding for those projects. They're not only a reality, but they're going to be a reality very soon. And with that, anyone else have anything? No? Then now, let's go to our village manager's report.
So Mayor, if I may, I'm going to start with just some responses to public comment, and then I'll transition into the village manager's report. First, I want to say I've been here now just over 7 months, and I continue to marvel, and I just want to commend the folks who live here in Ridgewood for your incredible engagement in coming out and participating in council meetings. I served in my previous position, part-time then full-time, for 22 years. And we do not have this type of engagement in other municipalities in New Jersey. So regardless of where you fall on some of the pertinent issues that face this council, I just want to commend everyone who takes the time to participate either in person or remotely to put your position and your opinions on the record for the council and my office to consider. With regard to some of the capital items that were discussed tonight, first to Chris on East Glen, we are also going to have a subsequent presentation a week from tonight by our engineering department at our next work session to talk about the concept of placing East Glen, sidewalks on East Glen. There will also be presentations that same night for West Glen, which, as the mayor indicated just moments ago, the adoption of the bond ordinance to fund the West Glen sidewalk project is on for adoption before council this evening. And we'll also be talking about the potential installation of sidewalks on one side of Clinton Avenue, which we are able to fund through open capital from prior sidewalk projects where all the dollars were not expended. So that presentation by engineering for all 3 sidewalk projects will be a week from tonight on March 6th as part of our next work session. With regard to the 2 other recreation projects that were discussed during the capital budget, I respectfully disagree with any type of lack of transparency. This was discussed at the budget meeting on Monday evening, and there were questions that this council continued to have with regard to both the pavilion at Habernickel and the potential for new field lighting on Veterans Field. And what was done was Director Bigos from our Parks and Recreation Department is actually invited to attend our next work session, again, a week from tonight, to explain those projects more in depth, talk about the benefits of them, and answer any questions that the council may have. I think continuing the conversation about the contents of the capital budget for 2024 is imperative, not only so that the members of the council can have confidence in what they're approving, but so that residents can have input on how they feel about these matters as well. And I think we've taken a step forward in that respect tonight. I also want to echo the mayor's comments. Paul, who I believe left, and I know there were a few other members of the public who spoke about field lighting. The technology behind athletic field lighting has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. Spillage, glare, any type of effect on adjoining property owners, that spillage has been greatly reduced because of the type of technology that, in our case, we're speaking to Musco Lighting, they're a state contract vendor, and they would be able to be utilized by the village to install any type of new field lighting should the council decide to go in that direction. This will reduce the amount of lighting and glare that affects the residents who live around Veterans Field in comparison to what is out there today. Musco has come in. They have done an internal presentation with Parks and Recreation and the manager's office. They are willing, and they will be scheduled if this project moves forward, to come in and explain that not only to the residents who will be invited to the meeting, but to the general public at large. I can tell you that field demand is a significant issue. Ms. O'Keefe brought that subject up, and I was going to address it tonight under the manager's report, and I do apologize. I was out late last week ill, but I do have some dated material, which I want to add is an appendice in the Shedler application. So for those folks who are on social media asking about these numbers, this was included in the appendix for the Shedler application. So these numbers have been available since it was published on the website 2 Fridays ago. But I did mention on a social media post that I was somewhat taken aback by the amount of youth athletes that we have utilizing these facilities, both on the village side and the Board of Education side here in the village. Ridgewood Junior Football in 2022, and again, I'm seeking some updated data here, which I'll provide at a future meeting, had 726 participants. That breaks down to 75 to 80 flag football teams that operate here in the village. They have 7 tackle teams. Most towns have 4 tackle teams. In Ridgewood, we have 7 tackle teams. And now, junior football has sent a letter to the village seeking additional field use for a girls' youth flag football league, which would operate to service students in grades 3 through 8. So now we need additional fields to accommodate the girls' flag football group that is being organized here in the village. Ridgewood Lacrosse, 2022 numbers, 711 registrants. In 2023, Ridgewood Lacrosse had 686 children for the season. RBSA, this is our baseball and softball league, 1,305 registrants for kickball, baseball, softball, and t-ball. I met with Scott Muller on a completely separate issue the other day. I asked him how many teams they intend to have for this spring season. 135 Diamond Sport teams will be operating here in Ridgewood this coming spring. With regard to the Soccer Association, fall numbers, 1,890 registrants, spring numbers, 838 registrants. And that's not to mention the fact that Ridgewood High School utilizes village facilities primarily for baseball and softball, but every softball and baseball game that Ridgewood High School students play home is here on Veterans Field behind Village Hall. So this just gives you a sampling of the demand that exists on these ball fields. And while Shedler will proceed based on the process before the State Historic Preservation Office, another strategy to try to relieve some of this high demand is to be able to better light Veterans Field. As an outsider, it is striking to me that there is not a lit baseball or softball diamond in the village of Ridgewood, which means that none of our kids who play here can play at night. That is a unique situation in 2024. When I challenge you to compare that to any youth baseball or softball organization in Bergen or Passaic County, or for that matter, anywhere in northern New Jersey. So I bring those numbers to you just as a point of reference to illustrate the high demand that this council continues to hear about from active parents and active youth organization participants. And we are going to formalize this with updated numbers and actual team counts once all of the registrations are complete for the spring season.
Keith, just
yes.
on that note, how are we looking on getting our fields ready for the opening of the spring season?
So the equipment was delivered at Maple today. The intention is, weather permitting, that they will start and work there tomorrow and Friday, potentially Monday. And by the end of next week, Matt Andrula, our supervisor for parks, is confident that by the end of next week, Maple Avenue will be ready. With regard to Paul's comments earlier tonight on Veterans Field, I want everybody to know that we strategically waited to do the restoration, both on the turf at Maple and on the natural grass and clay areas here at Vets. And the reason we did that was because, number one, we were concerned that having 3 successive floods, there could be another one before the spring athletic season began. But number two, we had some freezing of the fields, and we also had periods where it was snow covered. So we made a conscious decision with the vendor to hold off and do this right as we were ready to open up our spring season in the middle of March.
Yeah, that's really amazing, given the amount of flooding that we had, that it is looking like we're going to be ready for the beginning of the spring season. And I commend everybody involved in this, the administration, the staff, the grounds crews, everybody who's out there working very hard to get this ready for our kids.
So just a few other responses. Mr. Loving, Mr. Calby is here. I'm going to pose those questions that you asked to him when he gets up for his presentation. With regard to Susan, I just want to mention that we are in communication with the bridge engineer. We're trying to get a revised estimate for the repairs to Kingsbridge. We are going to have some discussion with them about, the flooding concerns that the residents of East Saddle River Road brought up in the immediate aftermath, especially of the January flood, to make sure that this does not become a catch point. And who better to opine on that than the actual bridge structural engineer who's going to be working on this project. And one other comment to Susan, with regard to the timeline, I looked it up as we were sitting here, but the assertion that the small-sided field, which was recommended by the ad hoc committee, was intentionally left off the timeline, that's not true. On the right-hand column, 2017, the council rescinded the 2015 resolution, deciding instead to reanalyze the proposed plan for Shedler and appointed an ad hoc committee to propose a redevelopment plan. And then subsequently in 2018, the village approves a plan for a small-sided, multi-purpose, cool play turf field. The 2018 project then stalled. But the ad hoc committee is very well referenced in the timeline that she spoke about earlier. And finally, with regard to the soil testing, so we were prepared to go on that, and then we had the snowstorm. So I know Chris Rudeshauser in engineering is in the process, and he may have done it already. We just haven't spoke about it, and as I referenced earlier, I was out for a few days last week. But I will get a date for that soil testing to commence, and I'm sure living in the neighborhood, you'll see some activity over there very soon with regard to that. Okay? All right. Let me quickly go over to the manager's report. First, I want to report that at the end of last week and the beginning of this week, the Habernickel barn was raised up at the Habernickel Park. I do want to just let folks know that we had both a pest tech company come in to do an evaluation, which was required for the building department to issue the demo permit, but also we had an asbestos survey. There were some concerns that were expressed about whether or not there was any type of lead or any type of mold. There were no indications that either one of those were going to be a challenge there. So the only requirements that we had was for a pest inspection and an asbestos inspection, and both of those were done before the permit was issued. At this point, as I said earlier, next week we will have a presentation on the proposed pavilion that's under consideration for the capital budget. I mentioned the field restoration at Maple will commence the end of this week and continue into next week. We spoke about Shedler already this evening. I do want to mention the timeline for the Shedler application. So it was submitted 2 Fridays ago. It was received the following Tuesday after the holiday. That started the clock ticking for the State Historic Preservation Office to review the application. They have to determine whether or not it is technically correct, and whether or not there is any encroachment on the historical property. We've already conceded that there is an encroachment on the historical property, but that review takes 45 days or less. At that point, once we have information back from SHPO, if there's any amendments that need to be made to the application, they will be made. And once they have ruled it technically correct, we will have 75 days to go before the Historic Sites Council at a public hearing for their review in light of the fact that there is an encroachment on the property in the plan that was submitted to SHPO and to the DEP. We went over the sports numbers already. I do want to mention that on April 14th, Valley Hospital will be moving their operation from Ridgewood to the new facility in Paramus. Our OEM team, fire department, and police department have continually been meeting with Valley. I think we've had 3 or 4 meetings now with them. They have contracted a private ambulance service that will bring 55 ambulance and 15 critical care units into the village on that day. They will be stationed out of Graydon North and Graydon South. There will be no athletic activities on Maple Field until 1 p.m. that day. We will have athletics at Vets Field. However, all parking will be required to be here at the Village Hall lot and not on the other side of the ball field. And those communications will go out through the Parks and Recreation Department. But beginning 6 a.m. on April 14th, the emergency room and all of the traditional hospital functions will be moved over to Paramus. The existing offices and facilities here in Ridgewood will be primarily outpatient services. And as they begin to make decisions about what offices and services they bring to the Ridgewood campus, will continue to be part of those conversations, as some of that will be impact our building department. I want to congratulate our recreation staff last evening in Atlantic City at the Parks and Recreation Annual Conference. They were awarded the Daniel M. Gasselberty Excellence in Recreation Program, and that is recognizing the village for the annual Giving Thanks Ridgewood Elder Dinner. I want to thank Nancy Bigos and her staff at Recreation. They do a great job, and they certainly deserve that recognition and award. The budget meeting, the next budget meeting will be next Tuesday. I believe it's the 5th at 8 p.m. Here in council chambers, and then those presentations regarding the capital budget will be at the meeting the next night at the regular work session on the 6th. And lastly, tonight we will be having a presentation from Green Ridgewood. They are in partnership with students from Columbia University who will be looking at the effects of climate and flooding here in the village, and I look forward to their presentation. Just a few announcements. Ridgewood Parks and Recreation Department will be holding their trip to the Philadelphia. I'm going to Florida tomorrow morning. Philadelphia, Florida. That's where my head is. Philadelphia Flower Shop on Tuesday, March 5th. You can register online through Community Pass. The Health Department, along with Valley Health System, will be hosting the Mediterranean Diet Workshop March 19th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Ridgewood Library. To register for that program, you can call 201-670-5500, extension 2312. The next council chat will be held on March 3rd from 9 to 11 in the caucus room right across the hall here on level 4. Reservations can be made at 201-670-5500, extension 2207. Walk-ins are welcome, however, reservations do have priority. And our village council upcoming meetings, the budget meeting, as I mentioned, is this Tuesday at 8 p.m., March 5th. March 6th is our next village council work session. March 13th is our village council public meeting, and March 27th is our village council work session. All 3 of those meetings start at 7:30. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Keith. And I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I think Saturday is March 2nd, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's the 3rd. I'm coming back on the 4th, on Sunday.
No?
No? Oh, no, you're right. I'm coming back on the 3rd.
He's already
You're
on
right.
vacation, just a little bit. I'm just saying, you know.
My head's on the airplane already, okay?
I got it.
My first vacation since I've been here.
All good.
And also, it's the flower show in Philadelphia, not a shop.
All right, that was a typo on my right up here, so.
He's having a rough night. Thank you, Keith. And
If after all I said, those were my only two screw-ups, I'm in
Yeah,
good shape.
and you said a lot of things, so it was all good. And now we'll go to our council reports. Siobhan, would you begin?
Sure. So last week we had our Access meeting, and I'm so excited Chief Judge is here because the Access Committee welcomed two firemen, TJ Benitende and Ryan Romero, and they took a class on their own called Autism Shield, and there's several reasons why. With the new housing in town, we've welcomed many more special needs members into our community, and this has an impact on our first responders, and a lot of them were looking for more information on how to handle this from the fire perspective and from the police perspective as well for de-escalation. And they went and they came back to Access and gave a very informative, information-filled report. So Autism Shield, approximately 5.5 million Americans are living with autism, and if you have this, people with autism are 40% more likely to die of a physical injury, and they're at a 30% increased risk of interacting with EMS, first responders, or police. Typically, they're known for wandering, which causes a lot of if people go missing, and there was a lot of discussion of technology to help with that. And then the number one cause of death for children 13 and under is drowning, because during the wandering process, water is an attractive nuisance. I want to thank our fire department and our police department. Often when we give these reports, they're just very informational, but you have to feel lucky that you have people going out and doing community fire, community policing, and community EMS. And these two officers were very interested in taking the program and extending it further. So thank you, Chief Judge. Thank you to the Ridgewood Police Department and everybody who made it happen. I know that the entire Access Committee, of which our chair's father was a fireman, was very pleased to see this happening in our community. And it was just a really lovely meeting, and there'll be more on that, and a surprise for my council regarding fire's next step that you all are going to be so excited about. In addition to that, Access held another sensory-friendly dinner last night at Puzo's. Mayor Paul and I went. It was lovely. It's a chance again for the special needs community to have a night where the lights are a little dimmer, the service is a little more accommodating, and these events are wonderful, and they're such a great community developing effort, and they're a win for the business community. Puzo's did great. Both rooms were full, and again, thank you to our police and fire who showed up. We're going to be doing these every month. They're typically on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and I would encourage every member of the community, whether you're part of the special needs or not, to attend. It's really wonderful, and for everybody on the council who hasn't been, you're forever welcome. And I would just really like to thank Jamie Davis, because she took this idea and made it happen, and I'm very grateful to her for that. With respect to Shade Tree, we did not have an official meeting because of the snowstorm, but several fun things have happened. We have officially announced that Adopt a Sapling, our area, is going to be the Somerville area, and we met with Federated, and I want to say thank you to Federated, which is the board of boards, where if you're president of a local school, you sit on this board. And we talked to them about two things. One, inspiring adoption within the Somerville district, and then two, inspiring volunteerism, especially amongst the council, to dig holes and plant them on October 19th. We then partnered with Somerville, where we're going to be doing a whole host of fun things, and I'm pleased to say that the Somerville book this year is Big Tree. And it's written from the perspective of two sycamore seeds and their journey, and you know they're around during dinosaur times, and they fly all around, and they're brother and sister. And it's interesting because we have a Big Tree program here in Ridgewood, and we have the Adopt a Sapling, and the president of Somerville connected us with the principal, and we're very much looking forward to that. I want to thank Dr. Lorna Oates and everybody at Somerville, and if anybody wants a copy of this, it's not just a kid's book, it's a really quick read and really cute and whimsical and great. So thank you to Federated and Somerville for all of that, and of course Shade Tree. And separately, I did just want to give a shout out to Carolyn Jacoby, who's been our chair for the past year. She's exploring other passions, and so she's going to no longer be the chair of Shade Tree, but she is thankfully going to remain as a subject matter expert as a member. So a big thank you to Carolyn for all the work. I know that everybody up here echoes that as well. And congratulations to Adam and Nancy Brennan Hill, who will be assuming the role of chair. And then lastly, Keith and several business owners and I met on, it was yesterday, and we had a discussion about a particular element of business which is new. We've had several new businesses open, and they have a unique set of hurdles that are new. I'm going to say it sort of like if you watch any of these shows about startups, opening a business is not just about the business plan, but about how you navigate interfacing with the government. And we had a very successful, awesome meeting with them, and I really want to thank everybody who put that together for their availability. And it seems like there's some things that we can do where we have a couple of sets of problems that replicate across each, like many times. So it looks like we have many problems, but we might just have 3 or 4, and we need to address them. In addition to that, after that, I went to the soft opening of the Spice and Tea Exchange, which is down on the Arthur Groom side. And I want to say congratulations to them and encourage you all to go in and see this cool shop. And what they're doing is sort of whimsical and fun in Main Street. So they're selling blended spices, teas, accessories, and other things. But then they're selling their premium curated sugar to the cookie shop. So it's a completely Ridgewood combination of a product. They have a little mixology set if you're into making drinks, and they're going to collaborate for their spices to go to restaurants, and it's a very local approach. So I wanted to say congratulations to Lynn, and thank you for having me, and encourage everybody to support all of our businesses, but be incredibly supportive with the new ones. So that's it.
Thanks, Siobhan. Evan?
Yeah, I'll be somewhat quick. So I was double booked on Tuesday. Paul, thank you for covering library for me. Ridgewood Arts Council was the same night. Went to Ridgewood Arts Council. We're doing some really great things. We're going to be doing museum talks at the library on March 27th and April 3rd. We'll be getting out flyers, and you'll probably start to see it on social media. And then we're going to have an artist talk on April 11th as well at the library in the evening. Again, a lot more to come on that, but really kudos to Ridgewood Arts Council for really reinvigorating themselves, and I think sponsoring some really, really great events. Also, Keith, want to thank you and your entire staff for the budget process so far. I know I can be a bit of a tough grader at times, but understand that I fully appreciate the professionalism. I know we'll be talking a lot more about it, but the addition of the sinking fund, the addition of having multiple years listed out for when we're going to do other capital expenses, I think the professionalism that has been brought to the process this year has been absolutely fantastic. I'm going to thank you and everyone else involved with the budget process. With that, I do look forward to giving every one of your people a ton of grief in the coming days, but understand that I really have a ton of respect for the work that's been done so far. Also want to thank you, Keith, as well as the entire staff for getting the reigning court ordinance on the agenda tonight in the special session, as well as the Kingburg Bridge and the West Glen Sidewalk project. I have learned in my year on the council that municipal government does not move quickly. However, this is being moved about as quickly as can be possibly done legally, largely because we're doing everything that we should be doing and pushing it through. And again, really owe that to you, Keith, as well as all the other folks that go through the extra step of letting us have the special meeting, having everything ready to go. We could have waited to do this after the budget was approved, or we could have waited to do this in the next session. We didn't do that, and I know all the residents for around those 3 projects are really super appreciative, as am I. So thank you again, Keith.
Thanks, Evan. Lorraine?
I'm going to be really quick. I'm just going to say Tuesday is our last budget meeting. At our previous one, there were 0 public comments, none at the beginning, none at the end. This is going to be your last chance to speak up. If you have something to say about what we're planning on budgeting, we really would like to hear you. It's kind of a letdown when there isn't even a single comment. So please, you can go back. We've already had 3 budget meetings. You can watch them and see if there's something that came up that you want to speak about. But Tuesday at 8 p.m. is the last budget meeting. We'll have public comment at the beginning of the meeting, and we will also have public comment at the end, which We are hoping will end around 10.
Or sooner.
Just so you can plan. That's it. Thank you.
Well said, Lorraine. There was not a single person in the audience that night. And I know that at the beginning of this, we asked everyone to join in. And so we've still got one more. Please come. Pam.
With regard to the awards that the award that our recreation department got last night in Atlantic City, I was privileged to be there and see the supervisor of recreation, Katie Fry, receive that award, along with Deanna Shablik, who does an incredible amount of work putting that annual celebration together. And also to Stacy Antine at the Health Barn Foundation, who does all the purchasing and cooking with all her volunteers, and the serving of the meal by younger people from the Civic Youth Corps. It's just wonderful, all these different groups coming together every year. It was inspiring to see what other towns do in terms of recreation, swim programs, trail building, zoo education. It was just really very gratifying to see what's going on in our state. I'm not going to say much about Green Ridgewood because we do have a presentation this evening, but I wanted to let the public know that with regard to the Daffodil Festival and Earth Day Fair, we are running a poster contest in the elementary schools, and your children can drop off their artwork at the library, and we will be awarding prizes, first, second, and third, on the day of the event, April 21st. The Central Business District Advisory Committee will be meeting on the 7th, in person this time, in the Senior Lounge at 8:30 a.m. And the Northwest Bergen County Council Members Meeting is going to be March 9th, which is a Saturday, I believe, at 9 a.m. in Mahwah. And it's very interesting to meet our colleagues in other towns. Just as the mayors meet every so often, is it monthly? Mm-hmm. This is now an effort to have council members meet, and I would urge you to attend. It's going to be at 475 Corporate Drive in Mahwah. The Open Space Committee will be meeting on the 21st of this month. We will be scheduling our park walks in most of the parks in town throughout the spring, summer, and fall. The Planning Board Subcommittee on the Master Plan continues to meet. We are tracking, cataloging, and as to what action items from the master plan have progressed, have been accomplished, and we hope to make a presentation to the public in late spring, say April or May. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. I'm going to be as quick as I can. So the Community Center Advisory Board met last week, and the main topic of discussion there was that they're planning a fundraiser, and they will be selling Ridgewood emblazoned beach towels and water bottles. I urge everyone to jump in and get one, because it's something you're going to keep for a long time, and it all goes to fund our community center, which is on the first floor of Village Hall and hosts a variety of great programs. I also had the privilege of stepping in for Evan at the library board, where for me it was all about the renovation. It is an absolutely spectacular renovation there. It is beautiful. Again, I urge everyone to go there and see our reconditioned library that is lovely. And I was kind of stunned that 51 minutes after the meeting started, it ended. And I'm saying, how do they do that? I was very impressed. I also want to thank Puzo's for hosting the sensory-friendly dinner last night. Again, it's something that is done every single month. Puzo's, as have other restaurants done, have opened their restaurant on Monday nights when they are normally closed. And it is only open to the families of who want to attend, who have children with sensory issues. I commend these downtown businesses. I urge you, again, please, they support our community. Please support them. And I also want to thank the fire department and the police department, who always come in uniform. The fire department brought a truck. John, I don't know if you knew that, but they did. And it is a wonderful thing that the kids and the families all really enjoy. I want to echo Evan's comments on the budget meetings. I have to say that this year's budget meetings have been so smooth, so good. The presentations have been excellent, and we really appreciate all the effort put in by everyone on this. And finally, I also want to thank and congratulate the Parks Department, and especially Deanna, Katie, and Stacy Antine for outstanding work for making Ridgewood what I always say it is, which is the greatest town in America. So thank you, everyone. And with that, let's move on with our agenda. I believe we are ready to suspend our work session and convene a special public meeting.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Vagianos?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Perrin?
Yes.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Yes.
Councilmember Whites?
Yes.
And Councilmember Winograd?
Yes.
Good evening. This is the Village Council special public meeting. The date is February 28th, 2024. The time is 8:59 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled the same as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Mayor Vagianos?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Perrin?
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Here.
Councilmember Whites?
Here.
And Councilmember Winograd?
Here.
And we will begin. I move the clerk read ordinance 3991 by title on second reading, and that the public hearing thereon be opened.
Second.
Vagianos?
Yes.
Perrin?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Whites?
Yes.
And Winograd?
Yes.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3991?
Bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Village of Ridgewood in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, appropriating $1,509,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,433,500 bond or notes of the village to finance part of the cost thereof.
The public hearing is now open. Seeing no one, I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
I move that order, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Vagianos?
Yes.
Perrin?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Whites?
Yes.
And Winograd?
Yes.
I move that ordinance 3991 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
I second the motion.
Mayor Vagianos?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Perrin?
Yes.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Yes.
Councilmember Whites?
Yes.
And Councilmember Winograd?
Yes.
And we will move on to our next ordinance. I move the clerk read ordinance 3992 by title on second reading, and that the public hearing thereon be opened.
Second.
Vagianos?
Yes.
Perrin?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Whites?
Yes.
And Winograd?
Yes.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3992?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 265 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Vehicles and Traffic, at Section 265-67, Parking Prohibited Certain Hours, and Section 265-69, Time Limit Parking.
The public hearing is now open. Seeing no one, I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Vagianos?
Yes.
Perrin?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Whites?
Yes.
And Winograd?
Yes. I move that ordinance 3992 be adopted on the second reading and the final publication as required by law.
I second the motion.
Mayor Vagianos?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Perrin?
Yes.
And Councilmember Reynolds?
Yes.
And Councilmember Whites?
Yes.
and Councilmember Winograd.
Yes.
The following resolutions numbered 24-75 and 24-76 will be adopted by a consent agenda with one vote by the Village Council. There is a brief description beside the resolution to be considered on the consent agenda. The resolutions will be read by title only. 24-75, award professional services contract, hydrogeological consulting services, well maintenance and testing programs, not to exceed $109,000. 24-76, rescind and replace resolution number 23-388, authorize execution of settlement decision, Ridgewood Water versus 3M et al.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Vagianos?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Perrin?
Yes.
And Councilmember Reynolds?
Yes.
Councilmember Whites?
Yes.
And Councilmember Winograd.
Yes.
Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
And we will now resume our public work session agenda.
Mayor, first on the agenda tonight, as I mentioned earlier, we have representatives from Green Ridgewood with us to talk about their partnership with Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs relative to sustainability practices. Represent David Reckham, the head of Green Ridgewood.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I will be discussing a few things related to key initiatives from Green Ridgewood. Like Keith, I've been suffering with the cold, but I should be able to manage it.
You'll do great. Thank you for coming, David.
Okay, so just in terms of the key topics, obviously flooding is a major concern, and we have been, as a group, several of us have been spending the last 3.5 months on a range of solutions. We'll talk about that. We have the great privilege of working with 11 graduate students from Columbia University. We'll get into that. We'll tell you about something called Climate Fresk, which is pretty exciting. The Stormwater Ordinance newsletter that we're working on, Project 1,000 Acres, the master plan, Daffodil Festival, Earth Day Fair, and a few other thoughts. This is challenging. Yeah.
Or is it too far away from you?
David, you might
Going
want to
back.
go to the other table.
Okay. All right, we'll give it one more shot. So I'm sure I don't need to remind everybody about this picture. It's happened 3 times in the last 3.5 months. If you look at historical numbers, for whatever they're worth, about rainfall, we're supposed to get one 3-inch storm every 2 years. We got 3 nearly 4-inch rainstorms in 3.5 months. And the reality is this is the new normal. Our systems are not designed to handle 4-inch rainstorms, and we all know what the results were. So starting back in September, with a little push from George Wolfson, several of us got together, the Resilience Flooding and Stormwater Subcommittee. A large group of us have a meeting regularly for the last 4 months to come up with the range of solutions, and we presented our initial recommendations to Keith and to Chris Rudershauser just a few weeks ago. So we're going to get into those. Let's see how this works. Okay, there we go. So by 2100, it is predicted, and this is according to Rutgers, the National Association of Atmospheric Sciences, et cetera, that we will have a 25% increase in annual rainfall. That's significant. We're going to go from high 40s to low 60s in terms of inches a year. The 100-year storm will go from less than 9 inches to greater than 12 inches. I don't even want to think about what impact that could have, but a 36% increase. and 1.5 times the number of days with greater than 1 inch of rainfall. So we are dealing with some real serious issues here. With increased rainfall and the number of heavy rainstorms, we have risks to our habitation, to our residents, and to our infrastructure. So what we've designed on the right, I realize the print's a little small, is we're going to try how can we reduce flooding, and it's several elements. There is not one solution to this, it's going to be many solutions. And the major categories are decrease in slow runoff hitting flood zones, improve the quality of runoff, increase temporary water storage capacity, try to restore the floodplain, move water out of flood zones faster, and expand the water capacity near flood zones. I'm going to quickly go through, and we'll certainly be happy to talk with you about this in more detail, about a 20-point plan that we've put together for consideration and for study. It needs more work, it needs more analysis, it needs more data. Columbia students are working on that, among other things. Clearly, prioritizing Ho-Hocus Brook and Saddle River are keys, and the first thing we want to talk about here is exploring the capability to store water or expand water capacity during these very heavy events. So quickly to go through the list here, how do we increase wetland capacity? I mean, even if our stormwater pipes were twice as large, it needs a place to go, and we don't have capacity for all that stormwater. Subdivide properties and purchase flood-prone portions of those properties, a program New York City is doing currently. Purchase homes in flood zone with existing programs such as Blue Acres and the flood acquisition plan. Look at detention and retention basins, build a dam to reduce volume during major events. Look at a Bergen-wide county solutions up and downstream. We've been talking with folks at Bergen County. And then engage the Army Corps of Engineers, which I know that our village manager is already doing. The second part of this is utilize green infrastructure, and these are based really on best practices that are being utilized throughout the state and in other communities. Green infrastructure slows down the speed of the stormwater reaching our local waterways and improves stormwater quality. So look at stormwater velocity reducers, installing rain gardens and bioretention basins that accept stormwater runoff, expand the tree canopy throughout Ridgewood, which has multiple benefits, stores water, absorbs carbon, and shade, which will be critical in the future when we live in a hotter world. Repairing buffer zone restorations for the brook and for the Saddle River, including their tributaries, and then desnagging and desilting the brook and the Saddle River, although that's been done in the past, and frankly, that only lasts for 1 or 2 years, and then it has to be done again. So it's not the most effective. And then last, deploy stormwater-friendly pavement and a couple of other ideas. So the rainwater filters through the pavement, which reduces runoff by 80% and improves water quality. It gets into the groundwater, which is important. It helps recharge the aquifer also. So we want to, as part of this, the state of New Jersey, the DEP, is putting out an enhanced water management control requirement, so a new ordinance will have to be approved. I'll talk more about that later, but there's a real opportunity there. Target village-owned facilities for permeable pavements, such as parking lots, village hall, other locations. Look at streamlining the permitting process for pervious solutions. Look at disincentives for increasing impervious pavements, create a dry well campaign for residents, and incentivize the adoption of permeable pavement, maybe through tax credits or other financial mechanisms. Improve the stormwater flow by launching and adopt the storm drain program, and then frankly, education is a key part of what needs to happen. So I know I went through a lot there in a very short period of time, but we are working on getting more data, expanding this, talking about it with various people in the village government, and we think there's some real opportunities. Again, multiple solutions. We have a big problem, and we need to find the solutions. So let's talk about Columbia University. We are very, very lucky. One of our members of the Green Team is a recent graduate of Columbia's Graduate School of International and Public Affairs. All the students have a capstone project. We put in an application to work with us. We got voted the #1 project by the students. 17 of them voted for us, and 11 of them are working with us for 11 weeks. It's their capstone project, at least 10 hours a week. Do some rough and dirty math, we're getting about $250,000 of free consulting from Columbia University. It's really an awesome opportunity. And by the way, if you just go to the website for Columbia and look at who the graduates are of SEPA and who the professors are at SEPA, it's just extraordinary. There's our team. There's our 11 students. I think 8 or 9 of them are from overseas. It's an extraordinary bunch, very bright, and they all came here last Saturday to spend a day with us. Took them all around town and showed them all of the important places related to flooding and potentially decarbonizing our village and other opportunities. Really a good group of people, and I know some of you have already been interviewed by them, and they may be doing that in the future if they haven't done so yet. So they've broken up into project teams. We have a flooding team, which is headed up by, of all things, an environmental engineer. How do we prevent people's homes and businesses from flooding? We need more data, we need more analysis, we need solutions. We also have had access to one of the national experts who's a professor at the Earth Science School at Columbia. We're looking at decarbonization. How can we expand our renewable energy initiatives while reducing carbon emissions? Also, as part of that, how do we reduce fuel usage? And where are the best opportunities? I'm going to show you some data in a second. And then on the right, funding comparison. How do we assess best practices in New Jersey? Measure our success. How do we pay for these programs? And then they have one other assignment, which we'll talk about in a sec. So here's some of the information that they've been able to put together so far. I know there's a lot on this pie chart. I'll try to hit the big parts. These are the current greenhouse gas emissions for Ridgewood. And of the greenhouse gas emissions, almost 50% of them are vehicle emissions, which 70% are from passenger cars. The rest, 30%, are from trucks. Only 27% of our carbon emissions are from natural gas, how most of our homes are heated, and about 16% is from electricity. So this is just the beginning. I just want to give you an example of some of the data that they've been able to put together from Sustainable New Jersey. We do have less CO2 emissions in the average U.S. community. That's probably mostly based to PSE&G's fuel mix, a lot of nuclear. However, 22% of all of energy is actually coal that we use from purchases that PSE&G has. They don't have, the amount of energy they have in their own facilities is not enough to supply New Jersey, so they buy a lot of power, and they're buying a fair amount of coal, surprisingly. So what's next for the students? They're going to refine the recommendations. They're about 5 weeks in. They have another 7 weeks to go. Things are moving very fast here. There's an army of people to manage. We talk to them at least twice a week. We want to refine the recommendations based on the existing data. They're getting a lot of that from the village and other organizations. And then the ultimate goal is to develop a sustainability roadmap, a plan that will look at flooding resilience, decarbonization, and developing an implementable sustainability roadmap. So a hands-on, these are the things that we can do to make a difference. The project is due to be completed April 17th, and we might have an opportunity to work with them again. More on that in a sec. Climate Fresk. What in God's creation is Climate Fresk? All the cards are in your hand. Well, this is a game. And the long and the short of it is that a professor in France was teaching his students about climate change, and they were all sleeping. They were bored. So he said, I need to make this more exciting. So he created a game. And this game has become a really big deal in France and throughout the world. Over 1 million people have now participated in Climate Fresk around the world. It's a big thing in Paris, and there are climate fresks every night of the week all over the world. And we are doing it here in Ridgewood. We are only the second municipal government that they are working with in the United States. Only 15,000 people in the U.S. have been through it. So it's playful, it's collaborative, it's visual, it's creative, simple, and scientific. So how does it work? You sit around a table about this size, 6 people with the facilitator. First, they hand you 7 cards. It's causes and effects of climate change, and you have to put them in order. Then they give you 7 more cards, and 7 more cards, and they give you 42 cards. And this actually gets pretty complicated and difficult, but it's interactive. You learn a lot. You spend about half the session doing this learning, and then you go beyond that. and you can see us here. On January 30th, we had 18 people from Green Ridgewood, the Green Team, and a few other folks participated in the climate fresk. We got a common understanding of what the issues are, and you know, like most groups, some people know a lot, some people don't know a lot. This kind of elevated everybody to a certain level of knowledge. People expressed their feelings in the situation and discussed what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. So we tried to focus on answering 3 questions. How do we collectively reduce our carbon emissions? How can we adapt to climate change? And how can we do this in a way that is transformative, that makes the transformation joyful and enjoyable? And that's a key focus of what Alexei, who's the U.S. CEO, is trying to do. So we came up with 67 suggestions. One of our subcommittees is going through all of this now so that we can help come up with an action plan. And obviously, all of this relates also to what the Columbia students are up to also. So there we are at the end. We stood for 3 hours and we're still standing. And again, we're only the 2nd U.S. community to partner with them. We are planning on doing another climate fresk in the spring for key influential people in the village, and we'd like to invite all of you to that. We're working on putting a list together, and in the future, a few of us have talked about becoming facilitators and maybe quarterly having this for residents on a quarterly basis. They can engage in a climate fresk. It's a lot of fun. So, let me just mention a few other ongoing projects that we are focusing on. And a big one here is the enhanced stormwater recommendations from the state of New Jersey. So DEP put together a minimum requirement plan. They are urging stricter requirements. So the village has to approve a new stormwater ordinance no later than July 16th. A group of us have been working and going through this, and we will be meeting later this week with the recommendation. We do think that having stricter measures which relate very much to the challenges we're facing around flooding are appropriate, and we'll be discussing that with the engineering department most likely next week. One thing Green Ridgewood has not done a great job at is communicating on a regular basis, and we're going to have our first newsletter go out. We're working with Carol and Keith's staff, meeting with her on Friday, and our goal is to get the first one out in March. Other things, Project 1,000 Acres. Last year, we had No Mow May. We had over 300 people sign up. It really raised awareness, just the signs, so we wouldn't get fined for letting our lawns grow too high, raised so much awareness that people would talk about it. And this year, we're thinking about Slow Mow May, which really the goal here is that we should be mowing our lawns every other week. That's really what's best for the pollinators, et cetera, as opposed to letting it get too high. We're also thinking about developing something for the fall called Leave the Leaves, especially around trees and the flower bushes where the material is actually helpful, and also talk about pollinator pathways. One other item is implementation of the master plan. The Green Ridgewood has worked really hard to take the 214 recommendations, bring them down to about 6 that are absolutely the most critical. You can see maybe the list over there. Green building checklist, create a timeline for EVs, encourage renewable energy, expand recycling, resiliency planning, and emergency response and preparedness and community resilience. And I have to say it's been great to see how the communications on emergency issues has dramatically improved over the last few months. So Keith, thank you for that. But as Pam mentioned before, we are working on trying to make sure that as many of these recommendations as possible have been implemented. And just so you know, don't worry about reading all of that, but Green Ridgewood set up 6 subcommittees around the master plan. And we have a chair, and our members meet in between our monthly meetings. It's an amazingly committed group of people. So we have a subcommittee on resource management, on green building and sustainability, resilience, flooding, and stormwater, and of course, we have a subcommittee on Earth Day, because that's also a responsibility of ours along with the Conservancy, and of course, that will be April 21st, and we have big plans for that. So I just wanted to say all of this work would be impossible without having a great group of people who are passionate, knowledgeable, they really care. It's a diverse group of people also, and it's really been wonderful working with them. And I want to give a shout out to two people on the green team who have just gone above and beyond. Both of these women joined the green team last year, and the passion and enthusiasm that they brought has been extraordinary. Joan Hubertus has become our flooding stormwater expert. I cannot even imagine how many hours she has spent doing research, putting this all together. She's done great work. And Alina Mortkovich, who is my neighbor, and actually her house was damaged by a tree, and she's been out of her house for months. Despite that, she's made the whole Columbia thing happen. It was her idea, her recommendation, and she works very closely with them. So really two amazing people, but really a whole group of amazing people. So some final thoughts, and the first is a call for action. I mean, it's obviously painful to see the damage that the flooding does here to our infrastructure, impacting our people, our businesses, our fields, everything. Clearly, we need to do something different. We can't keep on doing the same thing. And as I said before, it's not going to be one silver bullet. There's a lot of different things that we can do. There may not be all 20 of those ideas, but it's probably going to be, you know, a dozen of those. Some are short-term, some are medium-term, some are long-term. And sadly, the situation is getting worse. I mean, there are fires raging across Texas in the middle of, at the end of February because of climate change. And it's obviously affecting our weather in so many ways. We had the fires here last summer where you couldn't breathe. So we have to deal with this reality, sadly. Key opportunities, we're going to work on building the recommendations from the Columbia students. And we look forward to the next Climate Fest where we can work with you and other Ridgewood residents to educate them about climate and develop real solutions. Building partnerships. I hope we can build a partnership with Bergen County. I've had some initial discussions. They've been a little disappointing, to be candid. Maybe there's other organizations that we can work with. Pam just sent me something today about the Passaic River Basin group, so maybe we can work with them. And if all goes well with Columbia, we might be able to do it again next year with them. So, so we obviously want to make them happy as well as them making us happy. So lastly, I just want to thank Pam and thank all of you for your support. You know, I moved here less than 4 years ago, and it's really been a lot of fun seeing this all come together and working with you and having a chance to work with some amazingly talented people. So, thank you.
David, let me be the first to say thank you so much for this really important and outstanding presentation. I know that it was the entire Green Ridgewood team, and I know that Pam has been a motivating force behind that. I personally know your background, your incredibly strong background in sustainability, and it's by doing these things that you raise awareness, and I know that I'm only going to be the first to thank you for this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. I mean, it was, I really came here thinking, oh, this is going to be boring. I'm not going to learn it. But I mean, it was good. It was good. It wasn't boring. You know, it was excellent. So thank you very much. And
Appreciate it.
I look forward to hearing more and learning.
Those in the sustainability world, I used to hearing things like,
Yeah, no, I have my
it's
kids
boring.
talking to me all the time, you know,
Right.
we're, you know, don't, you know, put any more driveways and don't do this, don't do that, and it kind of goes in one ear and out the other, but, you know, they really do care about the future, and I think your enthusiasm will spill over to all of us.
Yeah, and
So
it's
thank
been great. You know, we have 2 student liaisons, and it's really great to hear what 15, 16-year-olds have to say also. And one of our members also is, you know, in her mid-20s, and you get a different perspective. You hear about climate anxiety and other challenges that young people are feeling around this. And, you know, we want to make sure that there's hope, that there are things we can do here in the community that will make a difference. So.
Thank you, Dave.
I also want to say thank you. I
sorry.
just want to say the most impressive thing regarding interacting with the community was the No Mow May in my house. You know, my mom is local, my kids, and it sparked a conversation every single day, you know, every single day, multiple times a day. You know, my son's friends from college saw it. They were calling, they were checking in on it. You know, we took pictures with the dog, and I think that's you're a very impressive committee. Frank always reports back to you in parks, and I think the more community engagement we can do that, where there is no one answer, but you're amping up the awareness, was awesome. And I felt like, you know, I was one of the families that did it, and there were 300 families, but there were probably like 3,000 people at least discussing it. And I thought it was just so nice. And I'm going to do slow mo May this year, because that was like sort of where my whole family ended up last year, but it was great. And I just think everything you do is great, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was, you know, where I work in my house, I look right out on the street, and I can't tell you how many people walking their dogs would stop right in front of the sign and talk with somebody else, and it just led to so many discussions and conversations.
Yeah, with the dog, my dog did look like a lion. We put him in the No Mo May at the end, and we took pictures, and even that was a huge discussion.
Cool. Okay, and obviously, as we continue to move forward, please let us know about questions, comments, et cetera.
One part of outreach that you failed to mention is the grant application that biology teachers at the high school are making. And part of their grant application, and it's for $32,000 for environmental education, is they have to collaborate with a community organization. Guess what that community organization is? It's Green Ridgewood, because there are so many people in the community that are interested in what we're doing. And it's because of David's leadership. So thank you, David.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mayor, I just want to add that, you know, as we've been talking through some of these flood response actions that the village is taking, in addition to contacting the Army Corps and things of that nature, this is another layer of resident involvement in trying to come up with sustainable pursuits to mitigate flooding. So in that space, and with the sustainability aspect of it, and I did attend the Climate Fresque night. It was exciting. It was fun.
How'd you do?
We learned a lot. Well, I was in between that meeting and the meeting you were having about the movie theater, so they were quite different tones in those meetings, by the way. But I just want to thank David and the group at Green Ridgewood for all they're doing.
It is yet another example of what I always say, which is many hands make light work. 5 or 10 people can't get this town to the place where it is now. It takes everyone, and Green Ridgewood is certainly pulling more than its weight. So thanks again.
So, Mayor, moving on to item 12 on the agenda, we have our work session agenda. I'd like to call up representatives from Ridgewood Water. Director Calby's here, Mike Kors, our business manager, Lonnie McComb, one of our engineers, and Matt Jessup, legal counsel. And Rich, you're free to go in any order you wish.
Thank you. I was going to make that request.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Good?
Good.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us. We're going to go out of order here. We're going to take items 12A, 3, and 4 first. They both go together. As some of you know, we've been working diligently over the period of the last 2 years with all 4 towns to develop a lead service line replacement plan. This is a requirement as a result of a state law that passed in 2021, requiring that all lead service lines within the state of New Jersey be replaced. This includes both those lines that are owned by the utility that run from the water main in the street to the curb, and also those that run from the curb to the building that are privately owned by the residents or the commercial building within the 4 municipalities. We've been meeting with all 4 towns because it's necessary to build a coalition relative to this project. The state law allowed 2 options for the program, one by which the utility would pay for the entire improvement, including the one on private property, and then charge the ratepayers the cost of that. The other option was that the utility would pay for its portion and then assess the cost of the private portion onto the property owner. That latter option was chosen by all 4 municipalities unanimously based on the inventory that was completed for our lead services lines and the feeling from all members that it wouldn't be fair to place the cost of a private lead service line replacement on other consumers within all 4 towns that don't have a lead service line. So we're proceeding along the path of the assessment model, and before you is a document that summarizes that, and we're going to get into the details of that. Unfortunately, when the law was passed, it did 2 things. It did have these 2 options. If it laid out a mandatory only option, it'd be easier to go about this process and get it all done quickly, but it allowed for the assessment option. And at the same time, it expanded the definition of lead service lines. Prior to the law passing, Ridgewood Water had about 200 lead service lines throughout all 4 communities. When the law was passed, they included in the definition of lead service lines galvanized lines. That upped our count to over 2,000. So now we're faced with north of a $30 million project. Estimates right now are about $39 million that will be put out in terms of the necessary funds for doing both the private side and the utility side of the line. But again, half of that will be recaptured in the form of an assessment to the property owners. All 4 towns have agreed based on this model moving forward. We've gone to all 3 towns already and introduced it in discussion. Next steps are for them to introduce the necessary ordinances, shared services agreements that will be required, and then necessary public hearings around that. The team here will be attending those meetings in all 4 towns as well. So we're here tonight to kind of sum up where we're at, what steps it will take for Ridgewood to be a part of the program, and more importantly, the role that Ridgewood's going to play beyond what any of the other 3 towns do, because Ridgewood, the village of Ridgewood, is going to be bonding for the entire improvement. And all the 3 communities and Ridgewood itself will have responsibility to pay back in the form of the assessment money they collect back for the private portion. So with me tonight, to my right, I have Michael Kors, the business manager. As Keith introduced, Yolanda McCollum is our new senior engineer, and she's running lead on this project. To her left is Kristen Epstein from the firm CDM Smith. They're the hired consultant to help us put together the plan for this improvement. They are known for their work nationwide, and they were the ones primarily responsible for the work in Newark that was speed-tracked and completed very quick, thousands of lead service lines. And lastly, we have Matt Jessup, as you all know, from McManaman Scotland, bond counsel for the village. He's here to answer the difficult questions that I cannot answer. So now I'd like to turn it over to Yolanda to kind of sum up what you have in front of you, and then we'll move along.
Hi, everybody. So everyone got a packet that's up there, right? I didn't miss anyone. Okay. So just want to tell you real quick what's in the packet that you're looking at. The first thing is a January 26th letter that was basically, came with an advanced copy of the ordinance and the resolution and the shared service agreement. So that's just kind of it's a bit of a preview of the program. The next 3 items are the ordinance itself, the resolution, and the shared service agreement. There's a couple items missing that will finalize the final dates and the number Rich was talking about, the $39 million that we're going to completely bond for. And then otherwise it's intact. It's ready to go. There's only a couple items missing. And then after that is Exhibit A, which is part of that, which is the benefited properties. Ridgewood Water Village of Ridgewood has the bulk of the properties because we're large and we have many older homes. So there's a summary after, it's a long list of known lead service lines. There's 947 of them. And then the next list is the ones that remain unknown that we'll be determining in the next year. And there's 402 of those. These are on the customer side. After that, there is a summary that looks like this, that shows you all the towns in the service area. And those numbers there, we're estimating that the unknowns will be 75% probably lead. So we're estimating the 2190 total on customer side and 1943 total on utility side. All that comes together with a very conservative cost estimate that we don't know the actual cost of each replacement yet, but we had to make a conservative estimate to come up with the $39 million. because we need to, we need to bond for it as the maximum. We can't really underestimate there. So, the property addresses are listed there. And then the very last thing is the customer notification letters. We're gonna be sending out people notifications of these ordinances that they're coming up. We want to get those out right away. We ordered prints of them. We want them to see this, and they can, there'll be a link to the ordinance, or they'll know where to find the ordinance if they want to see it, because then we're anticipating the first reading and then the second reading in April, and then final passage in May. So then when we'll have the sign-up period, and then we will develop construction projects based on, how many people sign up, and we'll go through the process of doing a competitive bid and doing the actual work in the next, several years. And as more unknowns come on, we'll be adding, future construction projects, and we'll bundle things, by area, by maybe where we're going to be paving and things like that. There'll be targeted areas, and we'll try to have the most efficient implementation plan that we can, and CDM Smith is guiding us along the way. One last thing before probably Matt will talk is we are launching a new website March 4th, and all the things on our Ridgewood Water website now that have to do with lead will be on this website, and it will be a kind of a one-stop shop for people can sign up for the program. They can watch a video of what a lead service line replacement looks like, and they can get information and communicate with us through that interactive website. So it's a lot of information. Hopefully the packet, the notification letter explains a lot of this. It explains the options, and then Matt will explain how the ordinance actually works as far as how it affects the property owners.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Property owners that have confirmed lead service lines basically have three choices.
Matt, if you could speak into the mic.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Property owners who have confirmed lead service lines effectively have three choices. The first one is to not do anything with their lead service line. The second is to replace it on their own, call their plumber, their contractor, arrange to have the work done, pay for it out of pocket directly to the plumber or contractor. The third is to voluntarily choose to opt into this lead service line financing replacement program. For those property owners across all 4 towns that opt in, their construction cost will be funded through the issuance of bonds by the village to the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. The New Jersey Infrastructure Bank is a low-interest loan program set up for local governments to finance water and sewer improvement projects, including lead service lines. Generally speaking, any loan is funded 50% at 0% interest and 50% at the NJIB's AAA bond-rated interest rate. So 2025, the NJIB goes out to sell bonds. They get 3% interest rate. It's a competitive sale, so it's whatever the prevailing rate is at the time. You effectively have 50% of your loan at 3% and 50% of your loan at 0 for a blended rate of approximately 1.5%, right? So that's the structure of the loan that ultimately the property owners are getting. As I mentioned earlier, the village will issue all of the bonds. Each of the 4 municipalities are obligated to pay their share of the debt service. So the shared service agreement that you have before you and the resolution that authorizes the shared service agreement is between you and Midland Park, there's you, Glen Rock, and you and Wyckoff. And the other 3 towns are all agreeing that under any circumstance, they will pay to you, including through the levy of ad valorem taxes, they will pay to you their share of debt service on the bonds. That allocation is based on the customers that are in that bond pool that are having the work done, right? In the easiest circumstance, all 4 towns have 100 lines in the pool. They're all equidistant, more or less, from the property. Each town would pay 1/4 of the debt service, right? It won't be that simple, but Ridgewood Water will run that math for all 4 municipalities. So the other 3 municipalities have to pay you, the village, as the issuer of the bonds, under any circumstance, whether they get the money from the property owners or not. But the plan and the other document you have is a special assessment ordinance. Each municipality will adopt that ordinance, and it will authorize each municipality to assess the property owner for their allocable share of this cost. So effectively, the loan from the iBank will be divided amongst 4 proportionately in accordance with the number of people in the pool, and then that debt service will be allocated to each of the property owners who have participated in the pool. No municipality will be paying costs of another municipality. No property owner will be paying costs of another property owner. It will all be allocated out. That special assessment runs with the land to the property owner. It's paid back over a 30-year term, which is the term of the bonds issued to the NJIB. It is a fixed amount, so once we issue those bonds, every property owner will know whether the payment is made annually or quarterly. That's your choice. They will know exactly what they owe for the next 30 years. It does run with the land, so if I'm a property owner and 5 years later I sell my home, legally that special assessment continues on to the next property owner, unless the property owner and I decide to settle it in some other way as part of the term of the sale. As I think Rich mentioned earlier, all the other 3 municipalities are fully aware of the program. They're fully aware of their obligation to make debt service payments to the village as basically the conduit issuer. They'll make those payments in advance of when your payments are due. And then they have an obligation. They assess, they don't assess. From the village's perspective, we need money from the towns, right? But they're obligated to assess to their property owners as well.
Thanks for that very clear explanation, Matt.
I just have one question. So when the property is assessed, does that mean it goes assessed onto your real estate taxes?
That's essentially exactly what it is. Think of it as an added tax on
So like
top
if
of
you
the
get
traditional.
If you do a bathroom addition, you get a new assessment?
Similar concept, correct, yes. That's usually a one-time assessment, right, that gets added on.
Right.
This is, this assessment will be one time, but it obviously will have a 30-year repayment schedule attached to it. So recorded, similar to conventional taxes. If not paid on time, you charge interest, similar to conventional taxes. So it acts like a tax in every way.
So if somebody had that, and then they're selling their house, and somebody looking to buy looks up, goes to the tax assessor and looks it up, it'll be one number for the taxes, but then there'll be a special assessment, it'll say?
Correct,
like
yeah,
X
there's a
amount.
separate line item, so it's not blended into the tax bill.
Okay.
Right, with your land and your improvement piece, it is a separate piece and often actually a separate bill. So the tax bill gets mailed, the special assessment bill either in the envelope or separately gets mailed.
Oh, 'cause
Some
a
towns
lot
do
of
sewer
people-
charges that way, right? You have a separate bill for sewer charges.
Okay.
It can be done that way.
So a lot of people pay their taxes through their mortgage. So this wouldn't be paid through a mortgage, monthly mortgage payment?
So it could be, certainly a new property owner who's buying a property that has the existing special assessment already, it'll be known. The mortgage company may require it to be paid through the mortgage company.
Okay.
Some property owners have a mortgage, they don't pay their taxes through the mortgage company.
Correct.
Those who are getting it anew, they'll have to notify they'll either have to pay it themselves or notify their mortgage company if they want it folded in.
Okay, and then one other thing you said in the beginning, they have 3 options. The first option was do nothing. I didn't think that was an option. I thought this had to be done by a certain date.
Yeah, those weren't options in order of preference. The preferential option would be for them to join the program.
Right,
Well, yes.
what if they do nothing?
So the
Can-
state law, the New Jersey state law, applies to the water system, not to individual homeowners. So the water system is obligated to offer to do the replacement and to offer at least 4 times. If but the homeowner has the right to refuse that replacement.
Okay.
And if they say yes, the water system has
One
to
last
do it.
thing. So only the addresses that are on the known and unknown list will get a letter? Yes. Everybody else, it's known they don't have it, or they've already replaced it. So if you get a letter, you know it's not a mistake.
So I guess 2 quick questions. The first is, I'm assuming when somebody buys a house, this would show up as part of the title insurance. So if you're buying a house, you know this is coming.
Once it's assessed, it will be on the title report,
Okay.
yes.
What
Right.
about if you're buying a house and you've opted out? So I understand the assessment is transferable with the land, and that makes sense, and that would be disclosed, but what if you receive all 4 notices, and then you sell your house? Is the responsibility to disclose that you've done nothing?
Yes, when the the home changes ownership, that count of 4 starts over again.
So how do we keep track of things? That was my next question, actually, was my concern is somebody does nothing, 10 years passes, somebody buys the house, somebody gets sick from drinking water with lead in it, and on top of they've suffered an injury, they now sue the village or sue
So-
Ridgewood Water. So how is it that new owners will find out that the previous owner chose to just leave the lead pipes there?
So there's two things that are possibly happening. One is, I believe, the state or the federal government's going to make it mandatory at some point between now and the end of the 10 years. Second, a lot of local municipalities are putting forward ordinances requiring that it has to be done at transfer ownership.
Oh.
But
It's
I
part of
think
the
the other,
process.
sorry,
Matt can also check it. I don't think there'd be, if we follow the program that's designed by the statute, we're not going to incur any liability. We'll be cleared administratively from by immunity. But there may be other things that might go back to the prior homeowner if it's sold and somebody gets sick, in your example, that they would have to worry about. But as long as we follow the program and make sure that we dot our i's, cross our t's, we're fine. We're not.
So I would, I mean, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole tonight, but I would like, Matt, if you would mind giving us an opinion on passing a statute similar to what Rich just said, where we could potentially mandate that at the sale of a property, it would have to be done. I think there's a safety issue that comes
Sure,
with that.
I can work with Rich and Matt Jessup with regard to any type of a position on that.
The other thing I want to point out, even
I'm
with...
on the list, by the way, so I've got to decide.
Did you just look yourself up?
So this is a learning curve for all of us.
Oh, but
I'll
even with
admit I
the-
just did the same thing, by the way, but go on.
Oh, sorry.
I won't sue you, though.
Even with the existence of the law, Ridgewood Water has had treatment in place since 2015 to prevent lead corrosion. We provide a corrosion inhibitor that's put in the water. It's a food-grade product. And since then, we've had levels of lead from non-detect to 5 parts per billion. The action level is 15. So there is treatment and protection in place currently. That corrosion inhibitor lines the pipes and prevents the scaling. But the state law still requires us to replace all the service lines.
Also, every house that has a known lead service line since 2022 receives an annual letter notifying them that they have a lead service line, and it includes health risk language in that letter and ways that you can reduce your risk of exposure to the lead.
Yeah, no, my
Only one of which is replace your lead service line. There's other things like run your water, use a filter, things like that that
Yeah,
can
no, my
protect.
concern would be somebody moving into the house who's not had the benefit of that, and the old owner just didn't bother to
The
tell them.
state assembly, I believe, has considered legislation that would mandate, like the paint notification, the
no,
lead paint notification. They've considered doing that as well, so that might be coming down the
So
pike as
I'd
well.
be interested in not waiting on the state assembly. So again, Matt, I'd reiterate, I'd love to hear any thoughts you have in the coming weeks.
My legal opinion is to opt in, which I think.
No, I mean about something in addition, I'm good with this, and again, I don't want to go the
I
rabbit hole.
understand- I understand
But
your
about
question,
something
Evan.
where potentially we would make, we at the village level would make new owners aware or mandate that it have to be changed over. In terms of the cost, I imagine the cost per, if you do opt in, will vary in how many people actually sign up, because I'm assuming we'll get benefit of you doing this a lot. Just in case we get a lot of folks that don't want a piece of this, I mean, is there any way to ensure that we're not sticking a handful of residents with a much higher bill than they could otherwise appreciate, because we wind up just having a lot less people sign up than maybe we'd envision?
They will still have an option to opt out.
But they
up
don't
to
know.
X weeks before the actual replacement happens. At that point, they will
Gotcha.
have an estimate.
So they'll know the
of-
price
of-
before they
yes.
become liable for it?
Correct.
Great, that's what I wanted to know.
And the contract will be based on the number of properties. Like each contract that gets bid, they'll be done in tranches, I suspect, will be based on the number of properties that contract's gonna cover. So you'll know, right, at that moment, the contract
Great.
price isn't gonna be for 2,000, and then there's only gonna be 200, but the contract price stays the same. Right, the
Right.
contract price would come down or would never even be up, because it's gonna be bid
So
based
that's
on
great,
the
I just
number.
wanted to make sure, and to be clear, I would urge everyone to opt in. I think this is a great idea, and I think you've gone, clearly you've put a ton of thought into this. This makes a lot of sense to me. My hope is most of the folks on this long list do opt in. I just want to make sure we're looking out for everyone else. But again, really nice presentation, and this looks like a great idea. And again, just to clarify, all the other villages or towns that have heard this, they're on board with it. They're doing the same thing we're doing over the next couple of weeks.
We've gone to all 3 towns already to do a work session. They've asked some great questions. We've answered every question, and next step would be there for introduction.
Are we first, or has this been?
There's a little chart, Evan, in there.
There's a
It's
schedule
like a
on
little
the
reference
back.
thing.
You're actually the last of the 4 in this
Oh.
work session setting. We've been a traveling roadshow for the last 2 weeks together.
It was important that we got the buy-in from the other 3 towns, because without that, the program at the village level wouldn't exist. We'd have to
Okay.
think of an option.
My current curb-to-meter pipe, it was installed in 1947 and is not lead. The new material that's going in, what is it, and how long do you expect it to last?
The new material is copper. And the copper should have, making an estimate here, about 50-year lifespan.
You said 50?
Yes.
That's really not that long. Isn't there anything that
Well, those
would
lead
last
pipes or
longer?
galvanized pipes also had the same lifespan, or the ones that were installed in 1947 had the same lifespan. So many of them exceed that.
The bonding will be for 30 years. based on
Your
a
material that
30-year
was not
useful
lead
life.
installed in 1947, was it copper?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Remember?
I'm not that old, but.
Other questions? Anyone? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this presentation. We really appreciate it. I know that there are other parts of this, but the lead service line aspect of it, I know that I was involved in several of these meetings, and I know that you simplified it, and it was not so simple trying to figure out the path forward. I think you did a really commendable job, so we really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your assistance.
My pleasure. Shall we move on to the next part of this?
Yes. So if I can, I'll keep working backwards, and I'll get to the rate ordinance last. Item 12A2 is the award of a sole source contract for the 2024 exchange of granulated activated carbon media at the 2 active PFAS treatment facilities. This is a not-to-exceed contract with Calgon Carbon. It's for municipally reactivated carbon. Essentially, we're taking the carbon we already have and reactivating it to not put it to waste. So the price in this not-to-exceed contract assumes 2 changes at both treatment plants through the year, which has been what we've seen for the past year based on the usage of these 2 plants. So it's a recommendation for a not-to-exceed contract of $270,000 to Calgon Carbon of Moon Township, Pennsylvania. The funding is out of the village operating, water operating budget, not a village, sorry.
I appreciate the sustainability aspect of this, that we're recycling here. As expensive as it is, we're recycling.
Yes. Any questions?
Questions, anyone? All good?
If I can, if you're welcome to stay, there's one more item. All right, stay. So the last
Thank you.
item, thank you.
Thanks,
Bob.
guys.
12A1 is the annual establishment of the water rates and PFAS treatment charges. This is the ordinance that you have in front of you as a requirement as part of the budget cycle to meet the revenue requirement that was presented at the budget presentation
Yes,
last
this
week.
looked familiar. It's the same thing we talked about the other night, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Are required by ordinance to adopt the new rates.
So, Rich, this might be the opportune time. Before you arrived tonight, acknowledging that you and your team were in Glen Rock making a similar presentation to what you just did to the Glen Rock Mayor and Council. Mr. Loving had some questions about the rate comparison slide that was in the budget presentation last week. Can you just speak to the fact that that was a comparison to combined systems? And what the justification for picking those water providers were as an illustration in that slide?
Sure. So we tried to pick water utilities that are multi-district utilities. And what I mean by that is serving more than one town. Certainly, there are multiple utilities surrounding us right here in Bergen and neighboring Passaic County that have local utilities, but they only serve their internal community. They do not serve other communities like we do, 3 others in this case, total 61,000 people, 21,000 customers. So that's why we chose those. Certainly if the council wishes, we could, research any other utility in the state. The rate consultant that we hired, put those on the chart. Prior years, we've had others on the chart as well. But, timing-wise, those are the ones that were produced, and could certainly expand that if you like.
So you would describe that as an apples-to-apples comparison based on the fact that they're serving multiple jurisdictions?
Yes, there's operational differences when you have to operate outside of the borders of your own town. In this case, we're dealing with 3 different communities, 3 different governments, different, community needs, requests relative to what the water department does. And for Ridgewood Water, probably one of the most complex systems in the nation, 52 groundwater wells, 31 treatment plants, and 5 distinct pressure zones. There's not many utilities that operate like that.
And if I may, by comparison, in Woodland Park, we're a town of 12,000 people. We buy water wholesale from Passaic Valley Water Commission, and we redistribute it. But my point in saying that is there's 3 water providers in a town that's 3 square miles. There's Passaic Valley Water Commission, there's New Jersey American Water, and then there's the borough water provider. Our infrastructure there, staunchly different to what Rich and his team deal with here in Ridgewood each and every day. So when we talk about apples-to-apples comparisons, I think Ridgewood Water did their due diligence in providing an effective slide to compare it to comparable systems.
I'd be curious to know how we compare in terms of rates to other water utilities that are burdened with PFAS, because not every water system is. And this is what we have, this is our albatross.
Sure. Yeah, the majority of the ones that are affected in our area are those singular utilities. Talking about Borough of Hawthorne, Hohokus, Waldwick, Mawa, Allendale, Fairlawn. So they're dealing in a singular nature. Like the Borough of Hawthorne, I believe, is 5 wells, and we have 52. So you have to kind of look at the economy of scale of that comparison.
Okay, thank you.
But it's widespread throughout the whole area, and once the EPA, makes their regulation at the much lower limit, we're going to find it's the whole state of New Jersey, pretty much.
Any other questions for water?
Can Rich answer? I think Mr. Loving had one other question.
You're absolutely correct, Councilwoman. If Rich, the other inquiry was about the Irving main, which there was a question about whether or not why that was not being done on the PSE&G right-of-way.
Right, so there are currently 2 projects that involve Irving Street, North Irving and South Irving. There's an active project that is in the PSE&G right-of-way that runs from Ridgewood Avenue down to Spring Avenue. We've been working with PSE&G regards to that work. It's planned to go in the right-of-way. As an alternative, the local streets around the area could be considered, but that decision hasn't been made. The second project I think the resident might be referring to is a recently awarded project that is to run a raw water main. That is a water main that we're going to put in the street to connect satellite wells to the PFAS treatment facilities that are being built. That's to take some wells that are in the vicinity here in Ridgewood, pipe them down to the Prospect treatment plant that's located at the Water Pollution Control Facility, and that route will go down South Irving Street. We didn't choose the PSE&G right-of-way because engineering-wise it wasn't practical. And I have to tell you from our dealings with PSE&G on the other project,
not easy.
As much as they will give you permission to be in the right-of-way, they will not guarantee that the line can stay there. At any point that they come in to do work, they will ask you to remove it. So in terms of us installing mains, it's best that we stick as best possible to within the right-of-ways or lands that are owned by the village or the other towns.
And Rich, the secondary project that was mentioned, what's your process to notify the residents?
Residents will be notified at least a week before. I know there's a bit of a mix-up. I spoke to one resident about the contractor got a little ahead of themselves and went out and did some video reconnaissance because they videotape, photograph the area to make sure after they do their work, nothing gets damaged or Nothing gets blamed on them that they didn't damage. But they're planning to start end of March. Prior to that, notices will be handed out to any resident in the area. The good part of this raw water main work, it doesn't involve any service connections. It's a linear project down the street. It's a pipeline goes in and we don't have to come back. No service connections or parallel, perpendicular crosses to the curb or to the house.
And sans the connections, the disruption will be similar to PSE&G laying a gas main like they have been up on the hill, correct?
Yes, coming down one trench, keep going and not coming back.
Right. So other than the connection valves, which aren't part of this, it's very similar to the trench work in the center of the street.
And this is a vital part of the PFAS master plan. Without the raw water mains, the consolidation would never exist or be able to function. You know, we're taking 31 treatment plants, consolidating down to 12, building miles of raw water main throughout all 4 towns. So the contract here in Ridgewood is one of the first of 3. We have a second one that's actually coming in front of you for award that'll do several miles of main within Midland Park and Wyckoff, and a third one later this year that will complete projects throughout all 4 towns for probably another 4 to 5 miles of water main. I mean, the good news is on top of all of this, this year is pinnacle. We are working beyond any dream that we had that this would have been in the beginning. We're breaking ground on almost every single project. We have 2 that are in operation, 2 under construction, 2 more that you're going to be awarding in the next 2 weeks, about 5 others that are going out to bid probably by August, and then 1 by the end of the year. So construction-wise, people are going to start to see the fruits of what's been presented to them over time and everything that we've engineered and worked very hard to get to this point.
And we had an hour-and-a-half meeting about how to communicate that to the customers in the service area today.
Sure.
So.
Any other questions?
I mean, does that mean our agenda is going to be totally unbalanced at the end of the year?
You might
It's
not
gonna be
see
like
me for
this
months.
way.
I'm going to have to put my boots on and get out there. It's going to be that busy. But you're right, it's going, I mean, these are big projects.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
It's
Can't-
groundbreaking work for the village and the utility.
Thank you for educating us on the council. I mean, I need to hear this stuff 3 and 4 times
I-
before really get a handle on it.
Now,
So
we
I
thank you all
appreciate
for your support, the other 3 communities, the coalition that's been built, thanks to all of you and your efforts. We couldn't be in a better place to get this done.
Yeah, we couldn't be in a better place to get this done because of your leadership on this issue, Rich. It's
Thank you.
really been amazing, you know, this problem that has created an issue for Ridgewood Water. In just a couple of years, Ridgewood Water is going to be the envy of every water provider in the country because of that leadership. So on behalf of the council and the residents, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And how early can we call you tomorrow?
Whatever you need to.
Some people have a pre-9 a.m. clause.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Careful what
gentlemen.
you say, Rich.
You have my cell phone number.
Good.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank
we'll
you.
move on to the budget section, and as I go over the first item, I would ask Chief Judge to come forward to handle the next 3. But we have a memorandum from the village engineer declaring an emergency repair. The history here, back on February 7th, there was an odor of natural gas that was observed by staff at the Streets and Fleet Services building. The fire department was requested to respond and investigate. It was determined that the boiler for the building had failed and needed significant repair. The signal division responded and ascertained that the boiler had failed. We were able to get some local parts from a vendor. They developed the attached list of parts that are needed, additional materials for the repair to make the boiler safe and to restore the heat in the building. The award of the purchase of these materials and supplies so that the traffic signal division can do the repair in-house. And the vendor is Sachs and Zitcher Supply Company. Total amount is $8509.54. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Items 2 through 4, I'll turn over to Chief Judge.
Good evening. I'll try and make this quick. I know it's a late night for everybody.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Number 2 is awarding contract requests for 2 tri-band portable radios for, actually it's for OEM, for the two deputy coordinators, which would be myself and Lieutenant Jay Chuck. Unfortunately, as we have mentioned, the cost of these things are astronomical, and I'm almost embarrassed to bring you a quote for $18,350 for 2 radios, and that's the reduced of what we got the first round, and we actually cut some things out. It's a state contract price through Motorola. You're kind of locked into Motorola, and you're locked into kind of the pricing, and it's for 2 radios. So it just kind of is what it is, unfortunately, so that one's that one. Any questions on the radios?
Are there any grants out there for them?
So it's interesting because Motorola, there could be some grants potentially. There could be maybe like, I don't think AFG does it, but there are some grants here and there. But it's for all different projects. Like if we were trying to go in for fire, police needs it. You know, other agencies need it. I'd almost wonder if there is more of a general grant for all first responders for this. But as we look into the projects we'll be coming forward with to you guys over the next couple of years for the infrastructure and the police department replacement of radios, we are looking at the bigger picture of, because we understand those are big numbers we're going to be presenting to everybody.
And I'm
So-
sorry, I know it's a late night, but.
It's okay.
$18,000 for 2 radios.
Yes.
What do these radios do for $18,000?
So the only benefit of them, they're they're tri-band radios, which means you have the ability to talk on UHF, VHF, and the 700 frequencies, which is the county frequencies now. Our radios are UHF, VHF only, which means we can't really talk to the county. For OEM, we need to talk to everybody. And unfortunately, the radios literally are just the cost. I mean, even if you cut out the ability to get rid of the county, you'd save like maybe $1,200 a radio at the most.
And I thought as part of the budget, I thought there was like $120,000 for radios for the police, and I thought there was another budget item for more radios for OEM. Will those do what these radios are doing?
So this purchase is coming out of that account. Yes.
Okay.
So it's not additional money, it's just
But
utilizing.
it's previous capital.
Previous capital,
It's not proposed capital for '24. There are line items from previous capital.
Just to spend from previous
items.
Some of that portable
Gotcha.
money
So
we've
the
asked
new
for.
radios are gonna do everything these do, but there's leftover money, so you're using that leftover money for
Evan,
these.
this is from '22 capital.
Right, so
These
what I'm saying is
purchases.
these are the same type of radios we're now buying, we're just using money from 2022 that we happen to still have?
Right.
It's actually going to do more than probably any of the police radios could do or any of the fire radios can do. Because that's where we need to be going.
Okay.
It's just that project to get everyone there. If you do the police right now, you're talking almost $450,000
Right.
just to get the police. To get our radios up to where they need to be, you're talking almost $100,000, and ours are almost end of life already.
The
So-
priority here is that we have 2 new deputy directors of OEM, and we need them in the absence of Jeremy to be able to communicate, with all these other agencies, including the county and neighboring police departments, fire departments, and the like.
The second item is just for the continued purchase of turnout gear. This has been an ongoing replacement. NFPA is every 10 years. And this is for the most recent purchase of, it's 39,306, which covers, sorry, I should have known this, 10 sets. Apologies. It's a replacement of 10 sets. The gear does go up every year, usually by $300-400 or so dollars. So this is just that replacement. This is also capital as well from 2023 capital. This is the allocation for that. And that is our need for right now on the turnout gear.
And John,
Questions,
correct
anyone?
me- I'm sorry, Mayor. Go ahead.
Questions, anyone?
Just between, just so we're clear, this purchase, if it were to be consented to tonight, and then your proposal in the '24 capital budget, that should bring you to where you need to be, correct?
So yes and no, I will say. Yes, for the immediate needs of today. There are a couple things to expand to. I just went through everything today, looking at everyone's expired helmets, where we are with gloves, where we're with boots. This just keeps going. I put in for the American Rescue Plan again as well, because I'm hoping that will help balance our needs. So I'm hoping between the American Rescue Plan grant, the money we asked for next year, we're kind of where we are now. I was just talking to one of the captains tonight that I'm thinking moving forward, it might not be the worst idea to, in capital every year, almost like the radios, start asking for a small amount of money, because every 10 years you have to replace, but also a single helmet's $375. A single pair of boots is almost $400. That's aside from the turnout gear of 3,900.
Is it possible that for the 25 capital budget requests, you could put a rotation plan together to rotate the gear and equipment for all of your staff so that we can sort of put that into the 5-year out?
I was started looking at that tonight, actually,
Okay.
before this, about the continuous needs. You know, with the grant last year, we bought 15 helmets, and we were like, that's great. And we actually need like 9 or 10 more right now already. We're behind. So it's just, I'm going to try and start forecasting this out a little bit more to see our every year needs for this, for gear replacement. All right, the next one is the request to approve a new ambulance billing vendor. As you know, we haven't been perfectly happy with our current vendor. It went out for bid in 2007, hasn't gone out for bid since. We put it out in October, apologies. October, we got return of one vendor. We had found that we spoke to a lot of parties that do this, and no one had heard of our request. I realized after the matter, one of the reasons being is we call it basic life support services, and a lot of these vendors are searching for like ambulance billing or some other keywords we didn't put in our RFP. So that was why we originally didn't get a lot of feedback. Second go around, we got officially 2 proposals here. And the one I'd like to go with, which I'm requesting to go with, is Cronus Health. Cronus Health used to be Revenue Guard. Revenue Guard was very well known in the industry for it. Unlike a lot of other billing companies that do medical office and private doctor and everything else, Cronus solely does EMS billing. This is all they do. They bill for a ton of, about 130 agencies in New Jersey. They bill for Holy Name Hospital and Robert Wood Johnson and Hackensack. They bill for Jersey City Fire Department and Clifton and Patterson and West Orange and Asbury Park, and it just goes on and on and on. I think they say they billed about 300,000 EMS claims last year, for like $100 million in total over all their agencies. They also bill little agencies that do 200 calls a year. So they do the whole range of everything. I actually was able to see a presentation from them last week by the person I'd be working with, and it was fantastic. I couldn't believe the things she was proposing that are billable, that insurance would cover. For a very simple example, if you go on a medical call and you need extra help to lift the patient, we always call additional firefighters to come. That's billable. That's a $300 billable charge that insurance will pay for just assisting on that call. And she gave a laundry list of things we could actually bill for. And that's a discussion I've already brought to the manager, that they'd be willing to come up here and we could sit and talk about what we would consider billing for, what we wouldn't consider billing for, the different options. So I love their focus. I loved, everyone I talked to, their reviews were like consistently very good for this company. It's what they do. So, and their percentage is 7%. We're currently paying 6.75%. If they don't improve our revenue by 10% in the first year, they'll reduce us back to 6.75. And they will also do a review of 2023 to see if anything was missed and rebill anything that wasn't pushed through for 23, that they can improve our.
John, it's safe to
funds
say
on.
they were confident that they think they can boost the revenue, correct?
Absolutely. 100%.
Questions?
I feel like I want to hire them for my family plan.
I'm sorry?
I feel like those are some pretty impressive statistics.
It's
pretty
I was reading this,
impressive.
I was very,
Yeah, they were great.
impressed by what they have to offer.
Good.
Anything else for the chief? Thank you, sir. Moving on to the final item under budget, item 5. This is 2023 budget transfers. There are only 5, actually, as listed on the last 2 pages of the memo. If there's no questions on that, we'll move to operations. First, we have a memo from the village engineer requesting the release of a performance surety bond for 657 Franklin Avenue. Any objections? Okay, and we have 2 surplus property memos. One is for the sanitation division, various vehicles, equipment, and solar arrays. And the second is surplus items from the Ridgewood Fire Department. Any objections to each?
All good?
Okay, Mayor, that concludes my portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Keith. And now we will return to our public comment portion of the agenda.
She's coming.
It's coming.
Good evening again, Boyd A. Loving, 342 South Irving Street. Not to belabor the point, but I just confirmed this with Mr. Calby before he left. There are 2 water departments that are on that chart that serve one community only, Fairlawn and Lyndhurst. So it was said that the comparisons were made by the water departments that are serving multiple municipalities. That is not the case for those 2. Just don't want to belabor the point. The other point that I'd like to make is one of those slides, I believe, contains a photo that I took, and I wasn't credited. Don't know how that happened. But I know that I have a release form that Mr. Rogers signed, so it's perfectly legal, but I just don't like the fact that that was done without my knowledge.
We'll advise Mr. Refkin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyd.
Cynthia O'Keefe, 542 West Saddle River Road. I just want to make a few quick points. When I get up here and speak and talk about the Shedler neighborhood and how people feel, and maybe they didn't feel heard and listened to, this does not mean that we are anti-sports. I want to make it very clear, because we talked about the us and them mentality that still pervades today. Just while I was online here a little earlier, the woman, I don't know her name, she came up and talked about soccer, and she said, I can't wait to get those permanent lights over at Shedler. And while we were chatting, I said, no, there's not going to be any permanent lights. You guys all agreed to that. And she said, we'll see. So see, it's not going away. But again, we are not anti-sports. We are not anti-open space. We just didn't want you to cut all our trees down, 300 trees, and put artificial turf on the property. That being said, you know, I think that it's too bad David left. I think he's doing a great job with Green Ridgewood and Pam. You know, it's a great initiative with Columbia. And I think if we're truly, you know, being transparent as a community, as a municipality, and we really want to walk the talk, that we talk to these young individuals and you put it all on the table and say, we're doing this at Shedler. This is our biggest project. We're, you know, planning to, you know, put this field in. We are, you know, we do want to move forward with turf. So you can't talk about sustainability and take grant money and then be completely the opposite, like kind of hypocritical. I hate to use that word, but it really is not walking the talk. You want to really be sustainable, you really want to be green, put your money where your mouth is. I'm sorry, that's where the rubber hits the road. So, you know, we keep replacing flooded fields with turf in this town. I do not understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. Many communities in New Jersey are moving away from turf. And there was that gentleman who was here, I don't know anything about his product. He talked about Aaron Brockovich and the Sierra Club. You know, there are people in the community that are working with the Sierra Club. So I'd be very interested to see. I doubt a plastic product doesn't have chemicals. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. And we have a couple of people on our hybrid access. Susan, you're up.
Okay. Hi again. Susan Moran, 705 Kingsbridge Lane. Thanks for taking my call again. I want to thank for the approval of funds for West Glen and the repairing of the footbridge. Unfortunately, my phone cut off while Keith was answering my questions, so I did not hear any of his answers. And I just, so if he can just repeat them, I apologize. I tried to access from my computer and I missed it. So also, I just want to stress that the footbridge is an arched bridge and really doesn't cause any dam-like effects, which I showed in the pictures where Hurricane Ida hit and there's a branch flowing underneath the footbridge, and that's before it went over its banks. Also, the bridge for Route 17 is the one that really causes the dam lake. And I know a house that was flooded, and she repeatedly talks about that particular bridge. So I think that's unfortunately one that has to be looked at, because I know that brings in the highway department for that, the New Jersey. On a separate topic, and this is for Pumpernickel, the pavilion that will be built there or proposed to be built there. I'm hoping that that will be managed by the parks, and I really do hope that there's some sort of service fee that goes into organized events for the pavilion. I grew up in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and they had several pavilions similar to that at their various parks, and they were all managed. And it took into accountability then that no one abuses the pavilions, and it also added extra revenue. So I think that's just something that Ridgewood should consider for that pavilion. All right? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Susan. Mary Lou, you're up.
Hello, Mary Lou Handy, 695 Kingsbridge Lane. Two things. And hearing the presentation earlier about recycling, indirectly mentioned as one of the items in the slide, I wanted to say I have so much more recycling than I have garbage. And although I can't say I've listened to all of your meetings throughout the years, but has there been any consideration about adding an extra recycling day each week and swapping it out with the regular garbage? Because I know from my lifestyle and many of my neighbors, we seem to have a lot of recycling and a little bit less garbage each week. So I just wanted to throw that out for food for thought. If I've missed it being discussed, I apologize, but it might be something to consider in the future. Okay? And my second point is the Kingsbridge Bridge. I want to thank you all for remembering to put it in the budget this year, and we look forward to a repair and being able to use it to be connected to the other side of town. One of the concerns that I do have is that I live one house from there, and I have witnessed myself that this bridge is an arch bridge. It does not cause any blocking of water spilling through it. I suspect maybe the Route 17 portion where the water, the river, Saddle River goes underneath it, might be more the culprit, because the water that flooded our basement did not come from the Saddle River at the end of our block. We watched it rise. Where it happens is when the Saddle River is coming from Hohokus and parts northward there, it fails, when it gains speed, and with extra water coming, it fails to navigate the curve along Howard Road, where I used to live, by the way, but I don't live there now. And it jumps the curve and it comes straight to my house on Kingsbridge. Our house became an island in Hurricane Ida with water rushing on either side. That seemed to be our bigger problem of water, because it comes from such force, fails to make the curve, and just spilling over towards the river, as well as maintaining its egress. It dies off by the time it hits Kingsbridge, because it does go into the drainage system. So I want to mention that I don't think that it's a cause of a problem or blocking. I never saw the water come up because it was blocked. It spilled out after the bridge. And I just don't want any exorbitant charges to have it inspected, nor delays to have the bridge repaired and given us full access again. But again, I want to wrap up and say thank you again for keeping this on the radar. And please, whatever you can do to expedite this repair will certainly make a lot of kids very, very happy, including the Ridgewood High School track team. Thank you again.
Thanks, Mary Lou. Scott, you're up.
Hi, I'm Scott Muller, 118 John Street here in Ridgewood. I want to thank the Village Council members that are supporting the Shedler Athletic Park project. The decisions you are making a difference with the overall well-being of our youth of our village. We purchased that property in 2009, and it's been dormant ever since. My daughter was 10 at the time. My son was 12. They are now 25 and 27. The acquisition was for athletic field facility that would take the stress off of our overused municipal fields. It will not only support athletics, but also provide wonderful passive park for walkers and historians if they want, and nature lovers. The 1,200 families of the Ridgewood Baseball and Softball Association thank you for your efforts and totally support the park. We also applaud you for the pavilion at Habernickel, not only for its safety purpose, but also for putting in restrooms in a much needed area. I want to thank you guys, and we totally support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Leo, you're up.
Hi, good evening. Leo Ruan, 705 Kingsbridge Lane. So I listened to a lot. It seems like the Ridgewood Sports Mafia came out in force tonight. But to me, they're like fair weather supporters. They're only out on the big nights, whereas the people from the Scheduler community will be out week on week. So we just want to voice our continued opposition to the extremely large field that you're putting on that park, which will give no access to walkways or anything, and the safety issues for the kids around around that location with the increased traffic. Hopefully nothing happens. I do like to thank the council though on the budgeting for the Kingsbridge Bridge. Look forward to that project getting completed soon, because it's been several years. So I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. And seeing no one else, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have any
Yeah, I want
comments about the comments?
I want to say just a couple things. One of the things about generously listening and with the comments about lighting is, as the fields rep and the parks rep, I want to tell a story. The first time I brought this up with a friend, he said, this is great, we're going to have concession, we're going to have lights, we're going to have a sound system, and we are going to play AC/DC at maximum volume while we warm up. And I was really kind of shocked at all of that, but I have to listen to that. People, the lights was an exchange. The conduits was an exchange. And some people on both sides feel that they can still want those elements of the plan that we're not moving forward. I want to be careful. Clearly, it's a delicate project, but the sports community, week after week after week, has been advocating for what they want, and they have left things. The lights are a big issue, and the way that they feel the lighting they'll see, people feel other elements of the park will see. The other thing is, when people who coach our children and advocate in these organizations show up, I'm really concerned with some of the statements calling them, they're out in force. They're here advocating for something they believe in and they volunteer in. And we have to be careful not to vilify them when they show up. So I just want to say, the light thing, Cynthia, I hear it all day long. Even with this, there's disappointment on the sports side, and they express that to me a lot. I hear it about concession. I've heard it about literally a sound system. And so what was said to you online is how somebody in our community feels, and they want to revisit it, and trust me, they revisit it with me all the time. We can't control that. We're not putting lights. The plan does not have lights. I do not think SHPO would approve it because of the lights, obviously. But I think it's very important for everybody on both sides to hear they left things as well. And the last comment, anybody who calls up, we need to be mindful, we need to listen. And, the sports groups were rather excited with the submission, and they came here to express that. And I think that's a good thing. The same way when people are disappointed, that's a good thing too. So I hope that makes sense.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I'll take 30 seconds. Just to reiterate, because Susan didn't hear my response earlier tonight, with regard to the footbridge and the potential for flooding, we are having the bridge engineer just take a look at that, because there have been concerns expressed by the folks on East Saddle River Road. I hear Mary Lou's comments. By the way, Mary Lou was so welcoming and nice to me back in July when I went out there and met with the folks over there. But I think, Mary Lou, I think the residents of East Saddle River Road who have been infiltrated with flooding are looking for reassurances that the bridge is not going to become a choke point and exacerbate their situation. So we're going to do our due diligence in that space and make sure that we speak to the bridge engineer. And the other comment I made earlier, Susan, was with regard to the timeline for the Shedler property. The ad hoc committee was referenced in there, both in the 2017 site and I believe it was the 2018 site, but you can go back to the recording of this video to confirm that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. Anybody else? And with that, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nope.